Welcome to Fantasy Audiobook, National Mecha. Invincibility starts with a million increase. Chapter 61. Quiet. Everyone's reaction. Mr. Joe had already expected this. Although the people present are all top geniuses from various regions in Daxia, they are still young, and it is really difficult to ask them to have a calm mind. But, due to the particularity of the Abyssalist project, it is not known how long it will be until the boundary between the Abyss and the main world is shattered. It might be 1 year, it might be 5 years, it might be 10 years. Anyway, it must be cultivated starting from the younger generation. What's more important is that these youthful young girls have just stepped out of school and have not yet been stained by the big dye vat of society and the world. The so-called innocent heart is the quality that people with a profound face need to possess most. Think of this. After everyone gradually calmed down, Mr. Joe nodded to the assistant beside him and turned on the holographic projection. Whoosh! After the holographic projection is turned on, everyone's eyes were drawn to it. But after seeing the projected content, a look of confusion appeared on their faces. On the seat, Su Yong has the same confusion as everyone else. Because this is just a simple world map with nothing special about it. Mr. Joe showed them this. What does it mean? It seemed that he noticed everyone's confusion. Mr. Joe, Yi San-chi, lowered his eyes slightly and spoke slowly. What you see now is the projection of the world map. You are in Daxia, but you may not know what is happening in other countries in the world. As Mr. Joe finished speaking, on the projection of the holographic world map, red dots gradually appeared. Some of these red dots are large, some are small, some are densely distributed, and some are just a solitary one. Everyone present was a talented and intelligent person. By this time, they naturally realized that these red dots must have some special meaning. But what it refers to specifically needs Mr. Joe to answer. These red dots, referring to the Abyss invasion case that occurred at the corresponding location on the map. Mr. Joe didn't speak loudly. But as soon as these words came out, it was tantamount to dropping a bombshell in the calm crowd. Abyss invasion case. Shock appeared on the faces of everyone present almost at the same time. Since they were young, they have been taught that there is an abyss outside the main world. Currently, human technology allows powerful mecha masters to go to the abyss through space transmission channels, hunt monsters, and enhance mechas. But no one has ever told them. Monsters in the abyss can also enter the main world. Wrong. It's not like no one has spoken to them. But almost everyone acquiesces. From main world to abyss it is a one-way passage. As long as you don't enter the abyss, then the main world will not be affected by the alien beasts of the abyss. This consensus has been shared by almost all countries and races in the world for nearly 100 years. However, now, Mr. Joe told them, in so many parts of the world, there have been so many abyss invasion cases. This is tantamount to directly shattering the worldview structure they have grown up with. In this case, you can imagine how shocked everyone was. I saw that everyone's expressions had changed. Mr. Joe pressed the projection button again. The next second, 2 scarlet numbers appeared in front of everyone's eyes. 23, 632, 6. These 3 numbers are so abrupt and eye-catching. So much so that everyone's eyes are attracted to them, thinking about what they might mean. Mr. Joe raised his head, looked around everyone, and his tone became heavier than before. Everyone. The meanings represented by these 3 numbers are the number of currently recorded abyss invasion cases, the number of deaths due to these cases, and the highest level of the current invasion targets. According to the report of the Global Abyss Joint Research Association, there are currently a total of 23 abyss intrusion cases worldwide. These 23 abyss invasion cases resulted in 632 deaths. The highest level of an abyssal invasion target is the 6th level Apostle of the Abyss. Well, that Apostle of the Abyss, Yu Zahu, a great man a month ago. It's only 1 straight away from our Daxia. This invasion alone resulted in the death of 481 people. The words seemed to be spoken slowly and in a calm tone. But it caused everyone present to fall into silent deep thought. Looking at the people who fell into silence, I felt the change in the atmosphere. Mr. Joe did not continue speaking, but silently stared at the group of the most outstanding geniuses in Daxia in front of him. As a veteran, he knew exactly how everyone felt. Just now, I was still immersed in the joy of finishing the exam. Come to this award ceremony happily and get your reward happily. But now, without any knowledge, he and his country threw such a heavy topic to them. They need to be given some time to digest. 10 minutes later. Seeing that the atmosphere was almost over, Mr. Joe spoke again. The above data refers to the abyss invasion cases that have become more frequent in recent years. Because of this, the World Joint Conference on Abyssal Research has changed its previous views. Abyss and main world are no longer two unrelated wholes. We humans can enter the abyss, hunt monsters, and enter the field. Quote, existences in the abyss can also invade the main world and kill humans. According to current research, what prevents life in the abyss from entering the main world is the border between the abyss and the main world. According to the name of the World Abyss Research Federation, we call it Hell's Edge. When this border is crossed, it will be destroyed. Then what we will face will be hell. Because so far, the maximum depth of exploration of the abyss by us humans has only reached the 13th level. No one knows what kind of horror exists after the 13th floor. Therefore, decision based on the central government's court decision. Starting from this year, the MEN-UNG project will be established. In every year's major examination, the geniuses with the most outstanding talents are selected as members of the Abyssal Ones. The mission of Abyss Facer is to cooperate with researchers from the Abyss Research Institute to roam the hell border, eliminate monsters trying to invade the main world, and repair the cracks in the border that have appeared. Those who face the abyss are those who face the abyss with courage. Speaking of which, Mr. Joe paused, looking around among the people. I have already explained the whole story very clearly. After becoming Abyss-faced ones, you will receive the country's top training and the highest quality resource supply. But equally, you will also face an abyss full of danger and death. And your peers will grow up in the ivory tower of the university. FFLX. Gentlemen, make your choice. If you want to withdraw, you can withdraw directly now. This matter is only about personal choice and not about anything else. You will not be punished, discriminated against, or looked down upon. You are still the proud sons of the building. Time to think about it. 5 minutes. I want the answer in 5 minutes. Finished. Mr. Joe stopped talking. Those with a bad face. Limbo. Top-notch training. The best quality resource supply. What Mr. Joe just said went through Su Yang's mind. The so-called Abyssalist project, do you want to participate in it? If you abandon all interests and just look at your own ideas. Do you think about it yourself? Mutually, the inheritance of Daxia for thousands of years. It is destined that in every man's bones and blood, the gene of defending his family and country flows. That is the sacrificial contribution of living and dying for the benefit of the country, rather than avoiding it because of misfortunes and blessings. That is the heroic saying of, why don't men take Wuhuk and collect the 50 states in Guanshan? Plus, walking on the edge of darkness. The heroic plot of using one's own strength to protect the people of the world. When they were young, didn't every boy dream that he was such a hero? So, if I just look at my personal emotions, I would like to participate in the Facial Person project. Then, after talking about feelings, look at the benefits. After the amplification system can amplify the Mecha core. I once had a similar planned route. If you want to get the Superstars Apocalypse points, you must make contact with the Abyss. For example, the Abyss Apostle killed, such as the Weird Shadow, one provided 200,000 Apocalypse points, and the other provided 1 million Apocalypse points. In the face of an increased price that can easily reach millions, tens of millions, or even hundreds of millions, if I didn't use the Abyss as my hunting ground, it would be a fool's errand to get so many points. In this way, Abyss Facer walks in the abyss and wanders in the most dangerous and darkest boundary, which is quite in line with his requirements. After all, in this environment, you might encounter monsters worth tens of millions or hundreds of millions of points. Kill, feel happy. As for safety factors, that 9-fold Seraph Circle I just obtained can easily defend against level 9 attacks. Level 9. What is this concept? As long as that kind of 10-star, country-destroying monster doesn't appear, nothing will happen to him. And if a 10-star country-destroying monster really appears, is there a difference between whether you are in the abyss or the main world? Look at it this way. Whether in terms of personal preference or practical benefits, joining the Mianyuanji project seems to be a better choice. 5 minutes are up. Mr. Zhou asked those present who intended to join the Mianyuanji project to raise their hands. After a while, Su Yang, the first one, raised his hand. After he raised his hand, Marong Nian glanced at him gently and then raised his hand. Su Yang and Marong Nian took the lead, followed by 3 more people who raised their hands. According to Mr. Zhou's previous prediction, it is already quite good if 3 out of 10 people are willing to join the Abyssal Facer project. Unexpectedly, it turned out to be as many as half. It seems, Daxia's soul is still engraved in the bones of these young men. With emotion in his heart, Mr. Zhou left the 5 people who raised their hands behind. The rest was taken away by the central government personnel for amnesia. After the 5 top talents who were unwilling to participate in the Facial Abyss project left, the remaining 5 top talents are: first place in the big exam, Hengcheng, Su Yang; second place in the exam, Magic City, Murong State; fourth in the exam, the Imperial Capital, Mo Ruhuan; the 7th exam, Zhengcheng, Solemn; 10th in the big exam, Shucheng, Chenjia. In Mo Ruhuan is the top supporter of Su Yang, a fan of love novels and Murong Lenjipi. Zhuang Yan is the honest boy with a short hair, he looks like the kind of good old guy. Chen Jia was a thin glasses man who said at the time that he intended to join the Special Equipment Research and Development Department. After the 5 people were assembled, he was taken away from the conference hall and moved to a conference room with a higher level of confidentiality. In the meeting, Mr. Zhou was sitting in the central chair. On the right side, Su Yang and others sat down one after another. Later, An Yan, Murongxi and others also entered the conference room and sat down on Mr. Zhou's left-hand side, opposite Su Yang and others. Su Yang was obviously stunned for a moment when he saw An Yan. This person, isn't she the aloof beauty I met at the temporary base? At that time, I had doubts about her identity. How could she directly change the strategy of the temporary base with just a phone call? Now it seems that 31, my suspicion at the time was indeed correct, she turned out to be one of the leaders of the legendary Abyss Research Institute. But, except An Yan, there was another person in charge of the Research Institute, which made Su Yang feel a little curious. Is that the little loli sitting next to An Yan? No matter how you look at it, she clearly looks like she is only 12 or 13 years old, right? Could it be that some prodigy girl, at the age of 12 or 13, is qualified to be the head of the Research Institute? Etc. Su Yang suddenly discovered a problem. How come this little loli looks so similar to Murong Nian? Of course, no matter what you think. On the surface, Su Yang remained calm. A few minutes later, everyone is in place. Mr. Zhou slowly spoke. Gentlemen, I have mentioned the Abyss Research Institute to you before. Sitting opposite you now are the 6 heads of the Abyss Research Institute. At the same time, they also have another identity, and that is the Abyssal Selection Officer. Each one of them is responsible for the selection of face-to-face warriors in a province. From the joint entrance examination after your awakening to the end of the major examination, they have been secretly inspecting all aspects of you, such as character, morality, character traits, etc. Based on the reports I have obtained so far, you have all passed the basic assessment. It means you have no problem in this regard and have passed. But, when it comes to this, Mr. Zhou suddenly paused and changed the subject. But even so, it still does not mean that you have the qualifications to become Abyssal Ones. Since Abyss-faced ones need to wander in the Abyss for a long time, you still need to pass the Abyss Phase test. You must have all learned in high school courses that being in an abyss will have some inevitable corrosive effect on the human body. Even if wearing the accompanying mecha can reduce the effect of this erosion, it does not mean that it can be completely eliminated. But, after decades of research, we have found that different people have different resistance to abyss erosion. To this end, after repeated experiments, we have established a complete and accurate testing process, which is the test you will conduct later. As long as you can pass this test, you can officially become the first members of the Abyssal Ones. I see. Su Yang recalled his feelings in the abyss. Although he clearly knew that the abyss would have a corrosive effect on the human brain, But in my own abyss experience, I have never experienced any discomfort. Maybe it's that the erosion of the abyss layer is too slight. After Mr. Joe introduced the abyss phase test, Su Yong and other 5 people, followed by the corresponding testers, left the conference room and were escorted by a special car to the Abyss Jurisdiction Bureau in the Imperial Capital. And, through the special dedicated channel, avoiding all eyes, came to the Abyss Transmission Channel dedicated for testing. Fellow students, during this test process, I will take you to abysses of different levels and adapt to the Abyss environment. If during this period, you feel obvious discomfort, such as dizziness, nausea, vomiting, etc., you need to report it immediately and I will take you back to the main world. Clear, clear, everyone nodded. Very good. Then let's start with classmate Chen Jia. The tester pointed at Chen Jia. The latter looked a little nervous. After holding on to his slightly slipped black-rimmed glasses, he came to the side of the tester. Later, under the leadership of the testers, they went to the 3rd layer of the abyss. Go up to the 3rd floor. Su Yong frowned slightly, feeling that things were not simple. I have been to the 2nd level of the abyss the most. I don't even know what the 3rd level is like. During Chen Jia's test, the remaining 4 have nothing to talk about. Su Yong stood aside. Murong Nian stood on the other side. Mo Ruhuan was in the corner, looking at Su Yong and Murong Si, thinking about the love drama between the two. Zhuang Yan wanted to chat with a few people and get to know them, but in the end he felt that the atmosphere was not quite right, so he could only scratch his head and shut his mouth temporarily. About 3 minutes later, the testers brought Chen Jia back here. It can be clearly seen that Chen Jia's face is paler. The 3rd level test passed, then the 4th level. The tester spoke softly and entered the corresponding data on a machine nearby. Then, when everyone thought the test was over, they continued to take Chen Jia into the transmission channel. But this time, the destination of the transmission is no longer the 3rd layer, but the 4th layer. Another 3 minutes later, the testers and Chen Jia are back here again. This time, Chen Jia's face became even paler. The tester asked Chen Jia if he wanted to continue testing. Well, let's take another layer. After Chen Jia calmed down for a while, Tuan said weakly. The tester glanced at the instrument in his hand, which displayed various data about Chen Jia's body. From the above data analysis, it seems that Chen Jia has not reached his limit and is not in much danger. So, the testers took Chen Jia into the 5th layer of the abyss for the 3rd time. The 3 minutes later, the testers came back with Chen Jia again. However, just after returning to the main world this time, Chen Jia lay down directly in the trash can prepared in advance and vomited. His face was as pale as wax paper, and his hands and feet couldn't use any strength at all. At the same time, the tester was standing aside, inputting Chen Jia's test results. Chen Jia, the 5th level of the abyss, the 3-minute adaptability test is completed and the test passed. Chen Jia, who felt dizzy in the middle of vomiting, finally breathed a sigh of relief after hearing the words, "Test passed," and went back to continue vomiting. The testers didn't give everyone extra time to prepare. Directly named, the next one should be. Compared to the thin Chen Jia, solemnity is much more substantial. When standing there, it looked like a cow. In the end, as expected, his test scores were indeed better than Chen Jia's. Significant, the 6th level of the abyss, the 3-minute adaptability test is completed and the test passed. Only, after returning to the main world, solemnly, he ran to the trash can. He and Chen Jia formed a group of brothers in distress, and together they held the trash can and vomited. The next one is Mo Ruhuan. Yes, in the corner. Mo Ruhuan walked up with a sad face. After going through Chen Jia and Zhuang Yan, Mo Ruhuan had already concluded that this test was terrible. However, after all, he was someone who was determined to join the abyss-faced ones. Even though he was afraid, he still started the test without hesitation. Mo Ruhuan, the 6th level of the abyss, the 4-minute adaptability test is completed and the test passed. When Mo Ruhuan came back, she was always on the ground when she walked, and her legs were even softer. Trembling, he walked to the corner and sat down. He buried his head in his knees and gasped, trying to put the nauseating feeling out of his mind. Compared to Chen Jia and Zhuang Yan, her performance was obviously better, and she completed the 4-minute adaptability test. Next, arrive at Marong Nyen. Next, Marong Nyen. When Marong Nyen returned to the main world, that beautiful face was also a little pale. But she didn't have any other reaction, as if she had no other symptoms except that her face was slightly pale. In this regard, even the testers couldn't help but sigh with emotion. They were obviously shocked by Marong Nyen's terrifying abyssal nature. Marong Nyen, 7th level of the Abyss, mid-level adaptability test completed, passed. The 7th level of the Abyss. When hearing this result, Chen Jia, Zhuang Yan, and Mo Ruhuan were all deeply shocked. As people who have experienced the test, they know better than anyone what it feels like to be eroded by the abyss. A girl who looks extremely fragile can actually adapt to the test on the 7th level of the abyss. Next, Su Yang, tester's voice, drawing everyone's attention away from Marong Nyen. Yes, there is also Su Yang, as the top monster who broke the historical record. How terrifying would his abyssal nature be? Marong Nyen reached the 7th level of the abyss. So Su Yang, is it possible to reach the 8th level of the abyss? With this strong curiosity, everyone followed Su Yang until his figure disappeared into the transmission channel together with the testers. The moment Su Yang disappeared, Mo Ruhuan, who had already recovered a long time ago, secretly glanced at Marong Nyen. Marong Nyen didn't seem to be looking at Su Yang just now. Is it because he hasn't recovered from the abyss compatibility test, or is it because he is arrogant? She must be Tsunere. It was clear that he took the initiative to sit next to Su Yang. As a result, I haven't spoken to Su Yang much from before the award ceremony started until now. But it's precisely because of this that you two get along so well. Just when Mo Ruhuan was alone in the corner, thinking about Marong Nyen's mental activities, the two brothers, Zhuang Yan and Chen Jia, were talking to each other about what kind of achievements Su Yang would achieve. Brother Jia, do you think Su Yang can reach the 8th floor later? Just now, Zhuang Yan and Chen Jia got to know each other. After learning that Chen Jia was 3 months older than him, Zhuang Yan, a familiar fool, just called Chen Jia, Brother Jia. Although Chen Jia was a little uncomfortable with this, he couldn't bear Zhuang Yan's shout, so he could only accept it silently. Facing the solemn inquiry at this time, Chen Jia pushed up the black frame on the bridge of his nose and said thoughtfully, "Although I don't know what the 8th level of the abyss feels like. But if it's Su Yang, it should be okay. Because he himself is a miracle." Hi, Zhuang Yan gave Chen Jia a thumbs up. Brother Jia, you wear these glasses. You can tell at a glance that you are a scholar, and you are very good at talking. Chen Jia. 3 minutes later, Su Yang and the testers appeared. This means that Yang passed the test of the 1st level of the abyss. However, just when the testers were about to take Su Yang to the 4th layer of the abyss, Su Yang asked curiously, how about starting directly from the 6th floor? Testers, Mo Ruhuan, Solemn, Chen Jia. What Su Yang said, is it human language? Chen Jia only passed the 5th level test. Zhuang Yan and Mo Ruhuan fell on the 6th floor. Only Marong Nyen completed the 7th level test. As a result, Su Yang, after passing the test on the 3rd level of the abyss, directly asked to go to the 6th level. Can't you? Su Yang was a little unsure. Mainly, he had just been tested on the 3rd level of the abyss, and he didn't feel anything. The so-called abyssal erosion is completely imperceptible. In this case, it is better to go directly to the 6th floor. Su Yang has always been a confident person. Since both Zhuang Yan and Mo Ruhuan were able to survive the test on the 6th level of the abyss, Marong Nyen was even able to pass the 7th level test. Then there's no reason why you can't survive, right? It's okay. But if the span is too big, it may be more difficult to adapt. It's okay, I can accept it. Then, okay, since Su Yang himself asked so. Naturally, the testers will not refuse. Directly change the anchor point of the abyss teleportation channel from the 4th layer of the abyss to the 6th layer of the abyss. Then take Su Yang and step into it. 3 minutes later, Su Yang returned to the main world again. Only this time, he slightly noticed something. Just now, when Zhuang Yan and Mo Ruhuan came back from the 6th level of the abyss, they both showed considerable discomfort. But why? Still don't feel it. It's not just that I don't feel uncomfortable. There's not even any strange feeling at all. Strangeness. Not just Su Yang. Even the testers beside him noticed something strange at this time. In order to ensure the safety of test subjects, devices that detect body data need to be worn before testing. Displayed according to the device. After Su Yang completed the test on the 6th level of the abyss, his body data did not change at all. It was as if the erosion of the abyss had no effect on him. Impossible. This is absolutely impossible. The erosion of the abyss will have an impact on any human being. Maybe it's simply because Su Yang's abyssal affinity is too high, so there's no reaction. This is the only explanation that can be made at present. But if this is the case, then Su Yang's abyss adaptability is really exaggerated and terrifying. Thinking of this, the testers once again took Su Yang into the 7th layer of the abyss. 3 minutes later, after returning to the main world again, the testers were completely confused. Because the monitoring instrument shows Su Yang's physical data still hasn't changed at all. The tester's eyes twitched. This guy is a monster. Take a deep breath. His eyes were firm again. Impossible. This is absolutely impossible. He really doesn't believe in evil today. Say nothing. Pull Su Yang. Adjust the anchor point again. This time, it's the 8th level of the abyss. When you see that the anchor point of the teleportation channel has been changed to the 8th layer. The 3 people present, Mo Ruhuan, Zhuang Yan, and Chen Jia, all had their eyes widened. Really, just like what Chen Jia said just now. Su Yang herself is a miracle. He actually wants to challenge the 8th level of the abyss. Horrible, too scary. Not just 3 people, even Murong Nian, who was calm in the end. At this moment, a hint of shock flashed through her beautiful eyes. 3 minutes later, 2 figures appeared again. But this time is different. Su Yang, who had no special performance before, now lowered his head, rubbed his index and ring fingers on his temples, and his steps were a little erratic. Are you okay? See this. The tester breathed a sigh of relief and quickly supported Su Yang beside him. It would be really strange if Su Yang didn't react after passing the 8th layer of the abyss. I'm fine. After Su Yang stood firm, the tester glanced at the monitoring instrument. The data above is shown. Su Yang's body has reached its limit. However, being able to support the 8th layer of the abyss, this kind of abyss adaptability is already quite terrifying. After all, abyss adaptability is related to the level of the Mecha Master. As the level of the Mecha Master increases, the abyss adaptability will also improve accordingly. Su Yang is just a 3-star Mecha Master now, but he has been able to endure the 8th level of the abyss for 3 minutes. He is indeed the strongest champion in history. However, what the testers who are lamenting Su Yang's terrifying talent don't know is where he didn't find it. In the palm of Su Yang's other hand. The strange black core was slowly retracting the tentacles connected to the testing equipment under the clothes. That's right. Actually, after passing the 8th level abyss adaptability test, Su Yang also didn't feel any discomfort. Under this situation, Su Yang knew very well that his reaction was absolutely abnormal. In the end, I had no choice but to use the black core to calculate and change the data of the test instrument. Otherwise, if the tester continues to take him to the 9th and 10th layers of the abyss, it feels like something will happen. But fortunately, it seems that the tester has been overtaken by him. As for, why won't I be affected by the erosion of the abyss? I can only wait until later and study it myself. However, despite this, when facing Su Yang, Mo Ruhuan, Zhuang Yan and Chen Jia still looked at him with respect. As people who have experienced the pain of the abyss erosion, they simply cannot imagine what kind of pain Su Yang experienced on the 8th level of the abyss. To this, Su Yang did not respond. Because the instrument data can be calculated and changed. That kind of pale face, I really can't pretend. So he could only lower his head and pretend that he was not feeling well and needed to rest. The abyss adaptability test is completed. The tester uploads the test results of 5 people. After the assessment, all 5 people successfully passed the test. This means from now on, the first batch of abyss-faced ones are born. After a longer rest period, the 5 people return to the original conference room. Mr. Zhou has already obtained the test results of the 5 people. That majestic face showed a smile for the first time. Congratulations on passing the test. In this case, you are the first generation of Mian Abyssers after the Mian Abyss project was established. In the next time, you need to receive corresponding training. In the Abyss Research Institute, there are a total of 6 departments, each responsible for research in different directions. You need to follow the 6 major departments, systematically learn all knowledge about the Abyss, and prepare for the battles you may face in the future. Of course, we will also arrange for the best professors in Daxia to teach you the basic Mecha Master courses. Not only that, as long as you reach the level, you can apply to the Central Treasury to update equipment to S level, or even SS level, which will be open to you. Hear the words. The eyes of everyone present lit up. As long as the level is reached, can Zhao apply to update to S level, or even SS level equipment? No wonder Mr. Zhou said before that the Mian UNG project would provide the best quality resource supply. And one more thing. As the first generation of Abyssalians, you will be numbered as a team for the time being. Your number. For better squad operations. The team is led by Su Yang. Murong Nian is the vice captain. Speaking of this, Mr. Zhou paused. Looking into the eyes of everyone, there was a meaningful smile. In order to give you some sense of urgency, in 3 months, I want you to go to the Abyss as a small team and kill an Abyss Apostle. Complete this task and prove to me that you have the ability to grow rapidly, and that you are qualified to be granted the authority of Abyssal One. Do you have any confidence? Hear the words. Murong Nian's expression was as usual, and he could not see any thoughts. Mo Ruhuan, Zhuangyan and Chen Jia were all shocked. Apostle of the Abyss. That's a minimum 6-star monster. Want them to kill an Apostle of the Abyss in 3 months. Although we are in the form of a small team, the difficulty level is still hellish. He among them all. Su Yang was the only one who remained silent. This is because, Apostles of the Abyss, I seem to have killed them when I was still a 1-star Mecha Master. Of course, can you say this? Obviously can't say. Besides, no one would believe it. A 1-star Mecha Master killed a 6-star Apostle of the Abyss. I wouldn't even dream of doing this. Even if Su Yang reveals that he has SSS level weapons. He said that he relied on SSS level weapons to kill the Apostle of the Abyss. No one would believe it. As for why, very simple. SSS level equipment. Is that what a 1-star Mecha Master can activate? Total nonsense. Even S level equipment. All require special transformation by the Abyss Research Institute. Only then can it be barely driven by the core of the 4-star Mecha Master. If you can use the Mecha core of a 1-star Mecha Master to drive SSS level equipment. Needless to say, tomorrow I will be directly promoted to the director of the Abyss Research Institute, and I will serve you like a god. By the way, your current identity is Abyssal One, so naturally you don't need to enter the Mecha University like ordinary students. After the meeting is over, the central government staff will take you to your new residence. Since you have just completed the major exam and the Abyss adaptability test, I will give you 3 days of vacation. During these 3 days of vacation, you can explain various matters to your family and parents. The central government will announce to the outside world that you have been selected for the Genius Youth program and will not participate in university education, but will be trained by the state. As for after the 3-day vacation, you need to start studying the Abyss course with the 6 doctors from the Abyss Research Institute. Clear. After the meeting, Mr. Zhou left. Su Yang and others, led by the central government staff, came to the southeast side of the central government area. Here, it is a townhouse area, and 5 people can choose their own residence at will. Su Yang doesn't have many requirements for accommodation. After the other people selected their favorite residences, Su Yang also randomly selected building and moved in directly. Have to say, the villas in the central mansion must be of the highest quality in terms of configurations. No matter what it is, it can be said that it has everything you need. This is true for Su Yang, who has lived in an old apartment since childhood. It can be regarded as an upgrade with a considerable span. After the staff left, the first thing Su Yang did was to summon the black core and hide it in the palm of his hand. Then, he pretended to put his hands on the wall and began to invade the villa's system. In less than 2 seconds, the black core cracked and invaded the entire villa's system and showed it to Su Yang. There is only a security system, no monitoring system. It is quite humane. After seeing the intelligence system installed in the villa, Su Yong breathed a sigh of relief and recalled the Black Core. It would be inconvenient if these villas were equipped with surveillance systems. Now it seems, Mr. Zhou's trust in them is quite sufficient. Of course, this may also be because their family background and personality characteristics have been clearly investigated, so they feel so relieved. But anyway, respect is still there. Later, Su Yong took stock of his current situation. Mecha level, 0.40. The Mecha core compatibility reached 4 stars 2%. There are still about 112,000 Apocalypse points left on hand. SSS level weapons, 2. XS level defensive equipment, 10 pieces. There is also a Black Core that so far I have not figured out what it is. Taking stock, Su Yong suddenly realized, I seem to be really alone. The kind where one person is full and the whole family is not hungry. However, Su Yong has long been accustomed to this kind of lonely life over the years. The short-term goal is to obtain enough Apocalypse points before being promoted to 5 stars, DBAI. The core increase of low-level mecha requires 1 million Apocalypse points, but the effect of this increase is not enough. You can only get one increase opportunity every 2 levels. You must cherish it. At the very least, you have to get an intermediate increase, right? And the intermediate growth opportunity requires 1 million Apocalypse points, a good thing. After determining your short-term goals, Su Yong started today's spirit bonding. Compared with the 3-star level, the difficulty of Qiling has increased a bit. Not only has the average distance of the light points expanded, but even the increase in fit provided by each light point has also been reduced. After completing a spirit bond, the core compatibility of the mecha only increased by 4%, from 4 stars 2% to 4 stars 0.6%. Of course, this increase is low, which refers to the increase compared to Su Yang's period when he was a 3-star mecha master. Compared to others, that is naturally an exaggeration. After all, for an ordinary 4-star mecha master, if he completes a spirit contract, he can get an increase of a few tenths of a percent, which is already quite good. When Su Yong and others settled in the central mansion, the principals of the 4 top universities wailed in their hearts. Just now, they received instructions from the central government, said to be among the top 10 in this year's college entrance examination. 5 people were selected into the Genius Youth program and will no longer participate in college admissions. Among the list of these 5 people, Su Yong is on the list. This is undoubtedly a bolt from the blue for the principals who have been racking their brains in the past few days, thinking about how to recruit Su Yong to their schools. But so be it. This is a red-headed document from the central government. Even if they wanted to recruit Su Yong, there would be no way. In desperation, I could only give up on these 5 people and turn my attention to the other 5 people in the top 10. As for the so-called Genius Boy plan, it did not arouse the slightest suspicion. Because every few years, the central government would launch this plan. The purpose is to recruit part of the talent pool for the country. This is something everyone in Daxia knows well. I just didn't expect that it would happen this year. Wrong. Should be. Those big shots in the central government. Seeing a monster like Su Yong, I was also moved. So just start a Genius Boy plan for him. Well, this explanation is quite reasonable. At dusk, ding, the communication system sent news. Su Yong took a look and saw that it was the girl named Mo Ruhuan. Mo Ruhuan, Captain, our team has just been established today. Do you want to go out for a meal together tonight? Zhuang Yan and Chen Ji are coming. The vice captain has not replied yet. Team leader. To this title, Su Yong is still not used to it. But after thinking about it, we are both the first generation facial ones. They are a team now and will definitely become partners fighting side by side in the future. In this case, it is not bad to have a meal together to enhance the relationship. Thinking of this, Su Yong gave a reply. Okay, wherever you are, I'll come find you. In less than 3 seconds, the reply came. We are already downstairs, Captain. Su Yong, fine, went downstairs. I saw 3 figures standing at the door. Surprisingly, it was Mo Ruhuan and the other 3. Team leader. Mo Ruhuan waved towards Su Yong quite enthusiastically. That enthusiastic look reminded Su Yong of Chen Anan. Dot 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 dot. I don't know how she did in the college entrance examination, and I forgot to ask. Let's ask some time later. Team leader, team leader. Zhuang Yan and Chen Jia also smiled and shouted at Su Yang. It can be seen that even though they have just met each other not long ago, but because Su Yang's strength is there, they are facing the captain Su Yang. The sense of recognition is quite high. At this moment, Mo Ruhuan suddenly let out a light sigh. Then he shook his head at a few people with some disappointment. It's a pity. The vice captain said she won't go. The vice captain's personality is a bit aloof, maybe we'll get used to him after a while. Chen Jia pushed up the black-rimmed glasses on the bridge of his nose and looked serious. Zhuang Yan scratched his head and said nothing. If she doesn't go, the four of us can go. Thinking of Murong Nian, Su Yang felt a little headache. Murong Nian took the initiative to sit next to him since last time. But from the beginning to the end, I didn't have much conversation with him. Su Yang felt keenly that this woman was very difficult to deal with. Okay, Mo Ruhuan sighed inaudibly. The combination of a god-level monster and a cold and arrogant female genius, without one person, always feels a bit depressed. But soon, Mo Ruhuan regained his energy and led a few people towards the outside of the central government office. I'm from the Imperial City, and I know there's a super delicious restaurant nearby. Okay, then it's up to you. Chen Jia's face was full of seriousness. I like everything as long as it's delicious. Solemn anticipation. Then you lead the way. Su Yang is more casual. Until the four of them were walking, they suddenly stopped. Then they all looked at the central government staff who were transporting a huge object not far away. That's a super huge floor-to-ceiling mirror. Who bought this? Mo Ruhuan looked at Chen Jia. Chen Jia shook his head. Then he looked at Zhuang Yan. Zhuang Yan's head shook like a rattle. Finally, Mo Ruhuan looked at Su Yang. Su Yang didn't notice Mo Ruhuan's gaze, but pointed to the direction the staff was transporting. Is that where Murong Nian lives? Seems to be. It really is. Vice Captain, what does she need such a big mirror for? Mo Ruhuan was a little curious. But this is the other person's privacy after all. Even if a few people are curious, it is impossible to ask directly. Forget it, let's go eat first. Agree. +1. Night. Come back after dinner. After this meal, several people from all over Daxia got to know each other a lot. Su Yang has a general understanding of his three teammates. Mo Ruhuan, a native of the imperial capital, has an outgoing, lively and eccentric personality. Chen Jia, a native of Sichuan, has a rigorous and serious personality, quiet and steady. Zhuang Yan, a native of Zhengcheng, has a simple and honest personality and a straightforward manner. As for the other person, never mind, don't talk. Strange woman. Before going to bed, Su Yang sent a message to sisters Chen Anan and Chen Luoyan, asking about their college entrance examination results. It was later learned that both of them had done quite well in the college entrance examination, and if nothing unexpected happened, they might be able to enter the Imperial Capital Academy. When I come to the Imperial Capital, you have to treat me to dinner. Looking at this message from Chen Anan, the cute appearance of the girl appeared in Su Yang's mind. He replied with a smile. Good. Put down the phone. Su Yang started to make plans for tomorrow. Tomorrow. It's time to return to the abyss. Well, if you can, maybe go to the depths of the abyss. For example, the 5th and 6th floors, or the 8th floor. With the 9 layers of Seraph Circle around, I am invincible. The issue is, he is a low-level mecha master. How can you sneak into the 8th layer of the abyss without attracting attention? Go to the 8th level of the abyss. This matter, if it were an ordinary low-level mecha master, it would be impossible to even think about it. There are 2 main factors. The first point, in the 8th layer of the abyss, there are 8-star monsters. Any one of these 8-star monsters has city-destroying strength and can unleash an attack comparable to a nuclear explosion. Let me ask, which low-level mecha master would dare to go to such a hell where 8-star monsters exist? Doesn't that mean you died too quickly? Second point, the erosion caused to human nerves in the 8th layer of the abyss is simply not something that low-level mecha masters can withstand. Normally, if a low-level mecha master enters the 8th level of the abyss, As long as they leave the temporary base, even if there is an accompanying mecha to help isolate the erosion of the abyss, they will die suddenly in a very short period of time. As for the principle of abyss erosion, humans have not yet thoroughly studied it. All means can only slow it down, but cannot completely eliminate it. So, to sum up, let alone a low-level mecha master. Not even 5-star or 6-star mecha masters dared to step into the 8th level of the abyss. However, Tuyong is different. First on point 1. He possesses 2 SSS-level offensive weapons, Yuan Nang nuclear sword and magnetic storm orbital ray. Normally, it can definitely cause damage to 8-star monsters and even kill them. At the same time, with the 9 layers of Seraph Ring around, I don't have to worry about safety issues. Secondly, the second point is abyssal erosion. If it was before this abyss is O stealth test, Su Yong may not be sure about heading to the 8th level of the abyss. Because he didn't know what kind of impact the erosion of the abyss would have on him on the 8th level of the abyss. But now, after passing the abyss adaptability test, Su Yong discovered what's different about herself. For almost all humans, it is a cursed erosion of the abyss. In my case, it actually failed. So, even if he goes to the 8th level of the abyss by himself, there is no need to worry about sudden death due to the erosion of the abyss. The combination of the two. Why not give it a try? Wealth is found in danger. With the 9 layers of Seraph Circle, this risk has been minimized. The only thing that needs to be considered is it possible that in the 8th layer of the abyss, there will be monsters that exceed 8 stars and reach 9 stars? On the first level of the abyss, 1-star monsters account for 99%, with a handful of 2-star monsters and extremely rare 3-star monsters. On the second level of the abyss, 2-star monsters account for the vast majority, but there are also 3-star and even 4-star monsters. By analogy, on the 8th level of the abyss, if you encounter a monster beyond 8 stars, you will be in trouble. Su Yang's brows wrinkled slightly, which was something he had overlooked before. Regarding the introduction of the abyss, in high school courses, only the first 3 levels are mentioned. In the eyes of normal people, introducing the first 3 levels of the abyss is completely enough for new mobile armor masters. Who could have imagined that someone at a low level would want to go to the 8th level of the abyss to hunt monsters? Let's see if we can find out. Su Yong logged on to the internet and made inquiries. A few minutes later, the corresponding introduction information was successfully queried on the official website of the Global Abyss Research Association. According to the Global Abyss Research Joint Association, in the first 5 levels of the abyss, there will be monsters that span levels. But starting from the 6th layer of the abyss, the number of layers in the abyss represents the highest level of the monsters in that layer of abyss. For example, on the 6th level of the abyss, the highest level monster is 6-star. On the 7th level of the abyss, the highest level monster is the 7 stars. Only, under these introductions, there is also a notice from the Global Joint Association for Abyssal Research. Note: since the world of abyss has not been thoroughly studied, there are still many unsolved mysteries that have not yet been revealed. This data is for reference only. Su Yong. But this is true. The information on the website claims that in the first 5 floors of the abyss, even if there are high-star monsters across the layers, the maximum will not exceed 2 stars. However, last time I was on the first level of the abyss, I met the 6-star apostle of the abyss. Besides, the strange shadow that was killed by him also appeared on the first level of the abyss. The points obtained by killing it are 1 million points, which means that the level of the strange phantom must be higher than the 6-star level of the abyss apostle. For the sake of safety, it's better to be a little more conservative. Then go to the 7th level of the abyss. There should be many 7-star monsters in the 7th layer of the abyss. You can get a lot of points by killing them. So Su Yong thought, although the target has been lowered from the 8th layer of the abyss to the 7th layer of the abyss. But when you say this, it's still appalling. Even after learning that Su Yang's true level is a 4-star Mecha Master. You, a 4-star Mecha Master, go to the 7th level of the abyss to farm monsters. Is there anything wrong? In this regard, Su Yong can only say, no matter how unreasonable it is. In front of the ultimate combination of genius plus idiot, everything will appear so reasonable. The next day, Su Yong set off directly to the Abyss Jurisdiction Bureau. To be honest, it would be nice to have a private passage to the abyss. In this case, it will be much more convenient for myself. But just think about it and forget about it. It shouldn't be possible. Soon, Su-yong came to the Imperial Capital Abyss Jurisdiction Bureau. Yesterday, after passing the Abyss Adaptability Test, Su-yong and others have been granted certain advanced permissions as Abyss Facers. Although the level of this authority was not raised to the highest level before completing the tasks set by Mr. Zhou, it was completely sufficient. With advanced permissions, Su-yong had an unobstructed journey and came to the Abyss portal through the exclusive passage. Just by selecting the Abyss teleportation anchor point, you can teleport to the corresponding Abyss layer. But at the same time, this behavior will also leave corresponding records in Su-yang's permission usage traces. The fact that I went to the 7th level of the Abyss to spawn monsters must not be exposed at this time, otherwise it may cause some trouble. At this time, the mysterious black core came in handy again. After selecting the teleportation anchor point as the 7th layer of the Abyss, Su-yong invaded the system through the mysterious black core and made modifications. Change the teleportation anchor point record from the 7th layer of the Abyss to the 3rd layer of the Abyss. In this way, even if someone wanted to investigate him later, they would only be able to view the record of his trip to the 3rd layer of the Abyss, and there would be no doubt at all. I have to say, this black core is quite easy to use. In a way, it can be called my second plugin. The 7th level of the Abyss. Main base D1 to 7. As the layers of the Abyss deepen, the difficulty for humans to build a base in the Abyss has almost increased exponentially. Because of this, in the shallow Abyss, in addition to the main base, there are many temporary bases. But in the deep Abyss, there are only a few temporary bases near the main base. At this time, main base No. D17, Su-yang's figure walked out of the transmission channel. While still in the teleportation channel, Su-yong summoned the accompanying mecha. Therefore, even if they meet other people in this main base, they will not be able to notice the difference in Su-yang's age through his appearance. Otherwise, if a person who looks like a high school student appeared on the 7th level of the Abyss, it would be wrong no matter how you think about it, right? Good thing. At this moment, there weren't many people in the main base. It can even be said to be quite rare. In the huge main base, Su-yong saw no more than 6 people. Moreover, they were all dealing with their own affairs and had no intention of paying attention to Su-yong. Under this circumstance, Su-yong left the main base, left the security area, and began to look for his hunting target. Of course, while leaving the protected area, Su-yong unfolded that 9 layers of Seraph Circle. It activates all-round real-time protection without blind spots, preventing you from being attacked accidentally and not even having time to react to the instant thought summoned by the instant thought. You know, this is the 7th layer of the Abyss, and you know what kind of strange monsters you will encounter. Be careful, that's right. Su-yang's current speed. After using the energy flame acceleration device, it can almost reach 1.6 times the speed of sound. To be honest, it's pretty fast. But Su-yong is still a little dissatisfied. He once tried to increase the energy flame acceleration device again. As a result, the system informed me that the increase cannot be repeated. So I made up my mind to use my points to exchange for a set of equipment after this, hunting, and then increase it uniformly. As a badass, even if I am only a 4-star mecha master, it makes sense to get a set of S starting equipment, right? After an hour, Su-yong has left the main base quite a distance. But in this hour, Su-yong never encountered any monsters. Maybe it's because high-star monsters are inherently rare. Su-yong thought so. As a result, just as Su-yong continued to wander, not far away, there were 3 figures passing by at extremely fast speeds. The speed was so fast that Su-yong could only vaguely perceive the existence of the 3 people. If I'm not mistaken, this speed must be at least 6 or 7 times the speed of sound, right? However, before Su-yong could react, his communication system. I received a radio communication. Outside this safe zone, the spread of radio communications is greatly limited by distance. Therefore, this message can only come from the 3 figures that passed by just now. Just listen, it is a breathless roar. Brother, run. Run back to the main base quickly and ask for help. Stop being stunned. Not long after this roar, The ground suddenly began to shake violently. At the same time, a huge figure like a hill slowly emerged in the distance. It was a creature similar to a Western dragon. The only difference was that it had 3 heads. The miraculous carvings of nature give. It was given a terrifying body like a fantasy creature from myths and legends. Those huge dragon eyes filled with cruelty and murderous aura stared fixedly at their prey. Every step it takes is enough to make the ground shake. This is. Su Yang's pupils shrank slightly. At the same time, the Apocalypse Illustrated book gave information about this terrifying monster. Apocalypse Illustrated book. 7 stars 3 lava dragons. Kill points, 1 million points. Attributes, speed, 100 meters per second. Power, 20 tons. Ability, lava breath. Introduction, an overlord level monster in the 7th layer of the abyss. It has a lava core in its body and can release destructive lava breath from its 3 dragon heads. Recommendation: fighting alone is definitely not a wise choice. It is best to kill as a team. If the output efficiency is not enough, my suggestion is, run! Exclamation mark. Uploader, Mecha no. 2,131,384. Look at the information on the Apocalypse Illustrated book. Su Yang closed her eyes and took a deep breath. When he opened his eyes again, the eyes he looked at the 3 lava dragons were full of heat. Raising his right hand, the magnetic storm orbital ray loaded on the mecha arm is fully charged. Thousands of meters away, the 3 people who were running for their lives like crazy. It was as if he noticed something was wrong. When they looked back, they all froze in place. I saw, on the cliff in the distance, a figure, alone. From his position, a terrifying ray was fired like a divine punishment. Like a shooting star that shot through the sun, it instantly penetrated the eyebrows of the 3 lava dragons. As the 3 lava dragons collapsed, the ground shook violently after the impact, and everything returned to calm. However, what couldn't calm down for a long time was the hearts of these 3 7-star mecha masters. They looked at each other, and the shock in their hearts could not be described in words. Finally, thousands of words finally converge into one sentence. Boss, knife. All 3 of them are 7-star mecha masters. The main purpose of coming to the 7th level of the abyss this time is to hunt down a weaker 7-star monster and collect materials for making equipment. Unexpectedly, due to a strange combination of circumstances, he encountered the overlord level monster in the 7th layer of the abyss, the terrifying 3 lava dragons. 3 lava dragons is extremely large, which causes its movement speed to be slow, far below the average level of the 7-star mecha master. But, as an overlord level existence, it naturally has a reason to become the overlord. There is a lava core in its body, able to produce extremely high temperature lava and release a breath of destruction. The power of this lava breath is extremely terrifying, and its attack range is extremely wide, like an all-round coverage strike. Even if the prey is very fast, it is extremely easy to be hit by the fully covered high-energy lava. It can be regarded as a whole map instant kill skill. In order to resist lava breath, the 3 of them consumed most of their energy reserves. Finally, when the lava core of 3 lava dragons entered the cooling period, they removed their defenses and fled desperately. If we calculate the time, the lava core of the 3 lava dragons should have been completely restored, and another round of large-scale attacks will begin. Result: just met the boss. As soon as they met, he was instantly killed with one blow. Thinking back to that devastating ray just now, even now, the 3 of them still feel a little frightened. That kind of power, 717. If nothing else, it has at least reached the 8th energy level. This means that the big boss in front of you is most likely an 8-star mecha master. Thinking of this, several people looked at each other and saw what they were thinking in each other's eyes. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. If you can take the opportunity to express your gratitude, get in touch with this 8-star boss. It will definitely be beneficial to their subsequent development without any harm. Think of this. The 3 of them nodded in unison. The driving mecha is about to fly in the direction of Su Yang. However, when they get close enough, suddenly, I hit an invisible barrier. What's this? Everyone looked surprised. I don't know why there is an energy barrier in front of me. In desperation, they originally wanted to attack the barrier. As a result, one of them suddenly noticed that the big boss's eyes were falling on them. Hey, Don't move yet. He seemed to have suddenly thought of something. He quickly called out to his companion who was about to attack. The boss is watching us. Hear the words. The companion stopped immediately. The 3 7-star Mecha Masters just stood there, not daring to move. Yes, I just don't dare to move. In the outside world. 3 of them. After all, they are a group of people who stand at the top of Daxia. Regardless of status or strength, he can be called a master. But now, the 3 of them seemed to be children waiting to be summoned by their elders, coincidentally standing still and motionless. It wasn't until Su Yang made a gesture to them to leave that they suddenly realized. It turns out that this invisible barrier is actually a defensive force field set up by the boss. As expected of a boss. He just has a temper. This defensive force field. Why, the radius must be several hundred meters, right? Within these few hundred meters, no one except me is allowed to enter. So domineering. The eyes of the 3 people suddenly showed admiration. Although I wanted to express my gratitude and establish a relationship with the mysterious boss, it seemed that the boss didn't want to offend them. It was as if killing one of the 3 lava dragons that was chasing them was just a matter of convenience. To put it this way, the big boss's mental activity at this time should be: just killed a scumbag casually. Just don't bother me. The rest, go away. Just thinking. Several people watched as the mysterious boss disappeared from sight. Then he left with a little regret and returned to the main base. The defensive stance that the few people encountered just now was indeed set up by Su Yang. Because he discovered that the defensive range of the 9 layers of Seraph Ring can be extended with his own thoughts. The maximum protection range is a radius of 1 kilometer. With such an exaggerated defense power, it can still reach such a huge defense area. Is this really the level that human technology can achieve? Su Yang expressed curiosity. But then again, just killed the 3 lava dragons. Let Su Yang's apocalypse points arrive at 1 million. The only difference, the core energy, which is the experience value obtained after killing monsters in the past, is absorbed by the Mecha core. But this time, it was absorbed by the mysterious black core. Su Yang didn't have much reaction to this. Anyway, the Mecha core currently has a lot of experience reserves, which is enough for its subsequent upgrades. It would be more helpful to me if the mysterious black core could be upgraded after absorbing the energy of the crystal core, thereby unlocking more functions. Kill one for 1 million, it's so cool. Su Yang sighed while continuing to go deeper. With the 9-layer Seraph Ring open, no one can enter within 100 meters radius. I am the only one who is invincible. Carrying the energy nuclear weapon sword and magnetic storm orbital ray, after catching the 7-star monster, you will violently output and then gain points. Such a life. Delightful. Somewhere on the 7th level of the abyss. The earth trembled, the mountains shook, and the sky roared. Boom. A giant ape-like monster. He was using his fists angrily. Hammering the void in front of him, he let out a violent roar. This is King Kong with extremely terrifying combat power among the 7-star monsters. Compared with the huge 7-star monsters, it is smaller in size, but its combat power is not weak at all. That terrifying force, just one punch, is enough to shatter a hill. However, face what is so close before you. But the human Mecha Master that he couldn't touch, the anger in his heart couldn't be suppressed at all. Forget it, let's end it. Looking outside that 9 layers of Seraph Circle, Su Yang yawned out of boredom as the King Kong frantically outputted towards that 9 layers of Seraph Ring for a long time. This was already the 3rd 7-star monster he had encountered. It was almost time to stop and end today's hunting trip. The reason why he didn't kill him directly was because he wanted to test the energy consumption of Chu Zhang Seraph's ring. Result: this King Kong fought for a long time. Only then did the sacred core energy reserve of that 9-fold Seraph Circle decrease from 100% to 99.99%. This made Su Yang realize that this 9-layer Seraph ring is very durable. He raised that Yuan Nang nuclear sword in his hand. Looking at King Kong, who was grinning at him. Cut it down with a sword. Seems unremarkable, but the next second, nuclear explosion. Open right before your eyes. Boom boom boom. Terrifying energy bursts, directly leveling a large area of terrain in front of him. But due to the coverage of that 9-fold Seraph Circle, The terrifying impact did not affect Su Yang behind the defensive barrier at all. As for that poor tool man King Kong, naturally, there will be no scum left if they die directly. Withstanding a close-range nuclear explosion, only less than 0.3% of the core reserve was lost. Looking at the core reserve data of 9 layers of Seraph Ring, a satisfied smile appeared on Yang's lips. In the previous 2 times, he used Magnetic Storm Orbital Ray to carry out long-distance sniping. Only this time, the Yuannang nuclear weapon sword was used for a close-range nuclear explosion. This way, when I use nuclear explosions in the future, I don't have to stay away from the center of the nuclear explosion. What a perverted defense. Holy core technology, what exactly is it? So thinking, Su Yang turned around and headed back towards the main base. Behind him, the horrific nuclear explosion showed no signs of stopping. But a real man never looks back to see a nuclear explosion. Authority of the Abyss. Su Yang's figure appeared at the entrance of the Abyss transmission channel. In this hunting trip, a total of 3 7-star monsters were killed. The first Overlord level 3 lava dragons provided 1 million apocalypse points. The second and third heads are slightly worse, providing 600,000 and 800,000 points respectively. In this way, a total of 2.4 million points were obtained. Plus the remaining 112W points. Now I have a total of 352W. Get rich suddenly, garden in the true sense. Sure enough, I want to earn enough apocalypse points. Look for the Abyss, you were right. Return to the Central Villa residence. As usual, Su Yang started today's spirit bonding. After some mental torture and pain, a light point was collected again, and at the same time, the core compatibility of the mecha was increased by 5%. If this rate continues, it should only take about a month for the core compatibility of the mecha to reach 5 stars. By then, you have accumulated enough apocalypse points. You can strengthen the mecha core for the second time. If the enhancement multiplier is sufficient, your mecha core should be able to be upgraded from S+ level again. The performance of the S+ class mecha core is already so terrifying. It is twice as high as the world's highest record. What level will it reach if it is improved again? Su Yang looked forward to it for a long time. But soon, attention was focused on the mysterious black core. During this hunting trip, the black core absorbed the energy crystal cores of 3 7-star monsters and seemed to have changed somewhat. It's just that Su Yang was in the Abyss at the time and didn't have time to study it carefully, so he just took advantage of it now and took a good look at to see if it had any changes. Thinking of this, Su Yang summoned the black core and placed it in his palm. Under close observation, Su Yang discovered the surface of this black core. It is covered with all kinds of extremely complicated textures. That kind of exquisite and weird arrangement does not look like a creation that can be created by human technology. Not only that, the transmission of energy in those lines can actually be sensed, just like the flow of blood in the blood vessels. What the hell are you? Su Yang watched with rapt attention. But at this time, a sudden change occurred. I saw that the black core suddenly showed unprecedented changes. Like a fluid, it first changed from a rhombus to a sphere, then to a cube, then to a polyhedron. Finally, it even turned into the shape of a heart. Su Yang's pupils narrowed. He couldn't understand the principle at all. He stretched out his hand and tried to touch the black core that had stopped changing. But at this moment, that core, suddenly he took the initiative to fly towards Su Yang. Later, Su Yang was shocked. Just like the venom in movies, it covers the whole body. It turned into another mecha that was completely different from the companion mecha. Sudden changes. Su Yang felt a little shocked. He had made conjectures before. This black core is so similar to the mecha core. It will also plunder the promotion contract spiritual light group and absorb the crystal core energy after killing the abyssal beast. Could it be that it itself is an alternative mecha core? However, this conjecture always remains at the level of conjecture. As a result, now, it tells Su Yang with its own actual actions. It is another weird mecha core. Is it possible for one person to own 2 mecha cores? Su Yang was shocked. This question popped up in my mind unconsciously. The education I received from childhood never mentioned this matter. At the same time, no one will ask whether one person can own 2 mecha cores. Because this has never happened before, there is no record, and no one will guess. After the initial shock, Su-Yang calmed down a little. If this weird black core is also the core of his own mecha, so at the very least, it shouldn't pose any danger to itself. Thinking of this, Su-Yang felt relieved a little. Mecha neural sensing system, Su-Yang tried to ask. Normally, companion mechas have nerve sensing systems. The mecha core is connected to the mecha master's soul, allowing the mecha master to perceive the mecha's status and data in real time. If nothing else, these 31 weird mechas, since they have cores, they should also have similar functions. In fact, Su-Yang's conjecture is not unreasonable. He successfully summoned the neural sensing system of this strange mecha. The neural sensing system presented the data of this strange mecha in the form of a panel in front of Su-Yang. Activated functions: energy dimension upgrade, intelligent brain invasion, mimic camouflage. Su-Yang, I originally thought I could use this panel to check the data of this weird mecha. Unexpectedly, this mecha has no data panel at all. Not only that, even the name cannot be viewed. There is only one column, and that is activated function. Now it seems, this weird core has activated 3 abilities. The first one is the energy fiber factory. It means that it should be able to increase the dimension of one's own energy. This allows him, a low-level mecha master, to drive high-level equipment. This ability is quite abnormal, even heaven-defying. Without it, even if Su-Yang is bound to the system and can amplify equipment, there is probably no way to use it. It means that it is useless to see and eat. The second item among them is intelligent brain invasion. Su-Yang is already familiar with this function. So far, as long as it is an intelligent system, no intrusion has failed. Whether it was the special car system at that time, the instruments used in the Abyss adaptability test, or the permission records of the Abyss transmission channel. As long as it is an intelligent system, the cracking speed of Blackheart does not exceed 5 seconds, which is invincible. Su-Yang is quite familiar with the first 2 items. But the last item, Mimic Disguise. This is the new ability activated by the Black Core after absorbing the crystal core energy of the 3-headed 6-star monster. This ability is not difficult to understand. It should be to give Su-Yang the ability to disguise himself as something else. Thinking of this, Su-Yang came to the bathroom and made a series of attempts. In the end, I discovered that anyone I had met before could perform a perfect mimicry disguise. It can also mimic and disguise itself as something other than a human being. For example, the first monster Su-Yang saw at that time, the Wind Wolf. Following Su-Yang's thoughts, the strange mecha attached to the body began to move. After a while, Su-Yang's appearance was transformed into the appearance of a wind wolf. In terms of appearance alone, it is almost 100% restored. After Wind Wolf, Su-Yang even tried pretending to be an apostle of the Abyss. Soon, the mecha on the surface changed again and began to mimic, less than half a minute. Looking at himself in the mirror who looked exactly like the apostle of the Abyss, Su-Yang seemed to understand how terrifying this ability was. 100% restored perfect disguise. Even biometric features such as fingerprints and irises can be copied. This thing, what exactly is it? Su-Yang is now very sure. This weird black core is definitely not something that humans can create with current technology. Each of its abilities is more outrageous than the last, simply outrageous beyond human imagination. Energy increases, brain invasion, mimicry disguise. Any ability. They are all black technologies that can change the world and cause a sensation in all mankind. How do you feel compared to the system? This black core is more like my plugin. The corners of Su-Yang's mouth raised slightly, feeling very excited. But then, he used the ability of mimicry to disguise himself. They transformed into a series of existences such as Lao Wang, Professor Chu, Lao Zhou, tables, chairs, etc. He even thought about trying to transform into 3 lava dragons. Experience the perspective of a giant beast. I'm just worried about breaking the villa. It's too late to give up. Half an hour later, Su-Yang, who has completely mastered the mimic disguise, put away the black core. Perhaps because the black core activated another function, Su-Yang felt quite comfortable. I decided to relax a little for the next 2 days and let myself enjoy a fulfilling vacation. Anyway, when the vacation is over, I and the rest of the team will have to study with the leaders of the Abyss Research Institute. The vacation by then will be hard to find in one day. Asterisk asterisk. The next day, Su-young slept until she woke up naturally. When I woke up, I looked at the news. Chen Anon. Because my sister and I did very well in the college entrance examination, our parents rewarded us with an expense account trip. My sister and I will arrive at the imperial capital at 11 noon. How about it? Do you still remember what you promised me before? Chen Anon and Chen Loyan actually came to the imperial capital. As for the promise, Su-young will naturally not forget it. It was agreed before that when Chen Anon and the others came to the imperial capital, they would be treated to a meal. After getting out of bed, dressing and washing, Su-young sent a message to Chen Anon. The restaurant recommended by Mo Ruhuan last time was delicious. It's better than the Hehe restaurant we went to with Chen Anon, Chen Loyan and Chen Loyan in Hangzhou before. So Su-young simply chose that restaurant as the place to meet. After Chen Anon replied, okay, Su-young went downstairs. Downstairs, I happened to meet Mo Ruhuan, who was coming downstairs at the same time. Captain. When Mo Ruhuan saw Su-young, she greeted her warmly. But after saying hello, she sighed and complained about the other 3 members of the team. That nerd Chen Jia gets up early every morning and runs to the Abyss Research Institute, saying he wants to visit the Special Equipment Research Institute first. Zhuang Yan even went to learn fighting skills from the guard captain of the central government. As for the vice captain, I haven't seen anyone from the beginning to the end. I'm so bored right now. Captain, where are you going? Can you take me with you? After saying that, he looked at Su-young expectantly. After learning that Su-young was going to have a reunion with her high school classmates, Mo Ruhuan's eyes suddenly lit up, and she clasped her hands together and begged. Then can you take me with you? My family is from the Imperial City, and I am very familiar with the Imperial City. I can just serve as a tour guide for your classmate, Captain, and I won't be so bored anymore. It's like killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Hear the words. Su-young thought for a while. It feels quite reasonable. After all, he was unfamiliar with the imperial capital. It's still a bit difficult to take 2 sisters, Chen Anon and Chen Loyan, on a tour. But before that, Su-young asked the Chen Anon sisters if they were willing to let Mo Ruhuan accompany this tour group. To this, less than a minute later, the message came back. Of course you can. Su-young, your friends are our friends, let's play together. Okay, since Chen Anon and the others have no objection, that's fine. An hour later, at the door of the restaurant, Su-young and Mo Ruhuan finally waited for Chen Anon and Chen Loyan, who were belatedly arriving. However, when I saw Chen Anon and Chen Loyan's, Mo Ruhuan's look is like this, Enary Summation 2000. She didn't expect that Su-young's friends were actually 2 girls. One is cute and sweet, the other is beautiful and charming. Team leader. Captain, is he going to have 3 boats? Does she know about the vice captain? As a supporter of Su-young Marong Nyen CP, Mo Ruhuan now felt a considerable sense of crisis. However, Su-young beside her did not notice anything unusual about Mo Ruhuan, and introduced the 2 of them to her. Introduce. These are my friends from high school, this is Chen Anon, and this is Chen Loyan, they are biological sisters. This is the friend I met in the Genius Youth Project, Mo Ruhuan. After the introduction, Mo Ruhuan's face became even more shocked. Sisters, plus a yandere genius girl. Even if you are an excellent captain, can you really control so many girls? What's wrong with you? Seeing that Mo Ruhuan didn't respond, Su-young couldn't help but ask. Mo Ruhuan quickly came to his senses and shook his head. Nothing, I'm sorry for being distracted just now. Hello, nice to meet you. Hello, nice to meet you too. Chen Anon responded with a smile. Chen Loyan replied equally politely. Afterwards, several people entered the restaurant and went to the private rooms that had been reserved in advance. Not long after Su-young and others entered the restaurant. Not far outside the restaurant, a seemingly ordinary man passed by. A black square object, accidentally, fell out of his pocket. Logically speaking, this should be fairly easy to detect, but the man seemed not to notice and drifted away. And the black square object suddenly shook slightly after a few seconds. Then, with the black cube as the center, some kind of spatial fluctuation slowly spread out. A crack opened slowly. At first, this crack is extremely small. So small that it may not even be as thick as a piece of paper. So people were coming and going on the road, and almost no one noticed this. Until a man passing by saw the black box on the ground, thinking that someone had accidentally thrown it away, and wanted to go over and pick it up. But the next second, the small crack suddenly expanded. The unstable space force instantly cut off half of the man's arm. The blood spurted out uncontrollably, even splashing on the man himself. At first, the arm was cut off too quickly. The man didn't even notice the pain. But after coming back to his senses, a shrill roar. The sound echoed throughout the street. "How's it going?" "Not bad, right?" In the restaurant box, Su Yong asked with a smile, looking at Chen Anan who was sipping the dessert on the plate in front of him. "Yeah, delicious." Chen Anan pursed her lips, revealing a sweet dimple. 0 grams. At this moment, outside the box, a man's shrill wailing could be heard. In the restaurant, the customers who didn't know what was going on looked out the window. I saw the man with a broken arm wailing, covering the wound on his broken arm, and trying to run away. However, the ever-expanding space crack, because it is expanding and the surrounding space is unstable, exudes a powerful attraction, attracting men continuously. In the end, the man showed a desperate expression and was crushed by the chaotic power of space. His flesh and blood did not splash out at all, but was sucked into the cracks. This bloody scene made the female guests present scream. Their male companions were also pale and had no idea what was happening. Well, Chen Anan also witnessed the whole process. Although she also felt sick and uncomfortable, as a mecha master, she had killed countless strange beasts in the abyss, so she was much better than an ordinary woman. She is like this, not to mention Chen Luoyan and Mo Ruhuan. How is this going? Previously, he had devoted himself wholeheartedly to observing Su Yang. Mo Ruhuan wanted to see if he was related to the two sisters in front of him. In an instant, he seemed to be a different person, with a calm expression, staring closely at the expanding crack. "I don't know. But it should be some kind of space channel, it seems, it is opening up." Su Yang said. "The crack in front of me is somewhat similar to the abyss crack I saw in the abyss at that time. At that time, the 6-star apostle of the abyss appeared on the first level of the abyss from the crack in the abyss. If nothing else happens, when the crack in front of you stabilizes, maybe something will come out of that crack. Someone should have called the police by now, and people from the Law Enforcement Bureau should be coming soon." Mo Ruhuan continued what Su Yang said. At the same time, while she was speaking, the space crack seemed to have gradually stabilized. Then, everyone's eyes narrowed slightly. I saw figures appearing in the cracks one after another. These figures, wearing normal people's clothes, look no different from ordinary people. Su Yang was present. Pupils shrink. This is mutants. While in Hangzhou, Su Yang has come into contact with quite a few mutants. So when I saw those figures, I immediately thought of mutants. This is the imperial capital. That group of people were so arrogant that they dared to cause trouble in the imperial capital. Or, is this a signal? A demonstration signal to show their strength to Daxia officials? To this, Su Yang doesn't know, but he noticed. Those mutants are still crawling out of the cracks. At this time, a bold idea appeared in Su Yang's mind. You must know that space channels are connected in both directions. If one of the endpoints of the space channel is here, so where will the other endpoint of the space channel be? Could it be the place where these mutants were created? If it is like this, mutants can come here from the other end. Does it mean that I can also send certain things through this space channel? I had sworn an oath at that time. Not a single one of those who create mutants to attack them will be spared. Thinking of this, Su Yang realized that if he had any plans, he must hurry up. It seems that this space channel will not last long. So, he looked at Mo Ruhuan. Mo Ruhuan, take the two of them out of here first, towards the central government house, which is the safest place. You can arrange them to where I live first. No Ruhuan didn't react yet. Su Yang's figure has disappeared into the panicked crowd. After regaining consciousness, Mo Ruhuan had no choice but to grit his teeth and contact the people in the central government. At the same time, he took Chen Anan and Chen Luoyan away from here and ran towards the central government. Fortunately, Chen Anan and Chen Luoyan knew that their strength was low and staying here would only cause trouble, so they did not do anything extra. Only, you can see it from their faces. They were extremely worried about Su Yang, who didn't know what to do when she disappeared. After disappearing from the sight of Mo Ruhuan and others, Su Yang first used intelligent brain intrusion to check the surveillance system of this street. It turned out that the control system had been invaded and destroyed before. It seems that this incident was premeditated. Thinking of this, Su Yang recalled the Black Core. I found a place where there was no one, and used mimicry disguise to simulate the appearance of a passerby. Then, activate the defensive force field of 9 layers of Seraph Ring and throw it directly towards the crack in space. On the way, a large number of mutants wanted to attack Su Yang. But under the force field of 9 layers of Seraph Ring, they couldn't get any closer. Because I'm in a hurry. Su Yang ignored them. Instead, he came all the way to the space crack. Facing the space crack that was still in a stable state, he used the Yuannang nuclear weapon sword and slashed 2 swords into it. After watching 2 slender light groups shoot out from the Yuannang nuclear weapon sword and fly into the space crack, Su Yang quickly left the scene. It may be due to the effect of Yuannang nuclear sword. The annihilation time of the space crack has been advanced. Soon, the space crack disappeared. Only dozens of mutants were left, wreaking wanton destruction on the chaotic streets. And Su Yang, after doing all this, he found an empty corner again, lifted off the mimicry disguise and restored his own appearance. Summoning the accompanying mecha, he glanced at the mutants destroying the streets and rushed towards them. The other side, somewhere in the wilderness thousands of miles away, thousands of meters underground. This is the number 4 underground base of Ascension Glory. At this time, X3 is in the underground experimental library. On an open experimental site of nearly thousands of square meters, a crack in space is floating quietly. After these years of unremitting efforts, the scientists of Ascending Glory have roughly mastered the temporary space teleportation technology. By setting up anchor points and determining coordinates, a space transmission crack can be created between the 2 anchor points. After the space crack is stabilized, space transmission can be carried out, which is quite convenient. The black cube that the man dropped, unintentionally, at that time was the anchor point. At this time, in front of that space crack, dozens of mutants were lining up and slowly walking towards the space rift. Not far away, 2 officers from Ascension to Glory were chatting with smiles on their faces. I heard that the headquarters of the Yingmei Federation has produced the 4th level O series Abyssal Potion. I don't know how long it will take to spread it to our Daxia branch. Who knows how long it will take, but our technological development in recent years feels like it has been rigged, and I don't know why. Yes, the research and development speed of X series Abyssal Potions and O series Abyssal Potions has increased several times. It is clear that a few years ago, there was no result. Anyway, one of them suddenly changed the topic, smiled, and looked at the space crack not far away. The superiors asked us to give a meeting gift to the officials in the imperial capital. I wonder if they will like it. These mutants all took X333 Abyss Potion. There are only 20 or 30 of them. How can they kill 100 people before the people from the Law Enforcement Bureau arrive? Hearing this, Qian Haojiao, the corners of the other person's mouth also raised slightly, and his eyes were full of madness. 100 people are not enough. As he said that, he was suddenly stunned for a moment. Because he seemed to see 2 slender light groups. It seems that it was teleported here from the crack in space. What it is, apparently, another taller and thinner man also saw it. He squinted his eyes and looked at the light group that was about to hit the ground. He seemed to be quite interested and was about to step forward to take a look. But at this time, some kind of bad premonition. It exploded violently in his heart. He stopped abruptly. Pity, his steps can be stopped. But the nuclear explosion attack released by Yuannang nuclear sword cannot be stopped. The moment 2 slender light groups landed, the extreme high temperature and power exploded instantly. With a destructive outpouring of energy, the entire underground base was annihilated in an instant. The entire ground collapsed suddenly due to the disappearance of the underground base, causing a strong earthquake, equivalent to the explosive power of 2 nuclear bombs. Let the entire Ascension Glory number 4 base be wiped out. The mushroom cloud rising into the sky is even more eye-catching in the empty wilderness. This sudden nuclear explosion-level energy burst. And even though it spanned hundreds of kilometers, the strong earthquake was still obvious. Undoubtedly, the surrounding cities were on high alert, and a large number of personnel were sent to investigate the location of the energy explosion. Soon, when the first advance team looked down from the air, although they were mentally prepared, they were still shocked by what they saw. I saw, underneath them, a huge deep pit that had just been destroyed by a nuclear explosion was lying there quietly. Logically speaking, even if a nuclear explosion-level energy burst occurs, the radius of the pit may be very large, but the depth will never reach this level. The dark, silent pit was lifeless at this time, as if the sword of Damocles, which destroyed everything, had been lowered because it offended the gods. What the hell happened? The captain of the advance team looked at the mysterious pit in front of him with disbelief. He instinctively realized that this matter was not as simple as imagined. Although this is a wilderness area quite far away from the city. But in the main world, according to the basic law of mecha divisions, no high-level mecha master is allowed to use such terrifyingly powerful weapons. After thinking about it again and again, he reported what he saw to his superiors. His instinct told him that this mysterious giant pit was definitely some kind of man-made product. And the inexplicable explosion of nuclear explosion-level energy was most likely caused by some kind of mistake. This idea, if heard by Ascension Glory members who have truly ascended, they may be so angry that they vomit blood. Base number 4 has been established for more than 10 years and has undergone tens of thousands of experiments, large and small, but there has never been an accident. Total is a disaster. Of course. In fact, this cannot be blamed on the captain of the advance team. Because even the officers of Ascension to Glory didn't know what was going on. Before they had time to think, they were instantly annihilated by the unforeseen nuclear explosion-level devastating disaster, leaving no ashes left. And all this, they are all the work of an unremarkable, low-level mecha master. It's a heartwarming gift from Su Yang. At the same time, Daxia Ascension to Glory headquarters. In the high-rise conference room, the atmosphere was somewhat silent. At the beginning of the initial establishment, all Ascension Glory underground experimental bases are connected to the same terminal intelligence system. Therefore, after the number 4 underground experimental base was completely destroyed by Su Yang, the brain system of Ascending Glory headquarters immediately sensed it. At the same time, the entire number 4 underground experimental base has been disconnected, and no matter what method is used, it is impossible to get in touch with its members. In the end, what happened? This is the confusion in everyone's mind at this time. In the center of the conference room, the holographic projection of the intelligent brain system displayed. In the number 4 underground experimental base, everything was still operating normally in the first few minutes. However, at a certain second, the entire base was completely disconnected. This means that the entire base was wiped out in a very short period of time. Could it be that he was tracked by Daxia officials? Otherwise, who has the ability to achieve this level of devastating blow? You know, every underground experimental base is equipped with advanced defense systems. Even attacks at the 8th level can be defended. Speaking of which, in fact, Su Yang's gift is really unique. Through the space transmission crack, the attack of the Yuannang nuclear sword is transmitted from the outside to the inside of the number 4 experimental base. In this way, even though the number 4 experimental base is equipped with an advanced high-level defense system, it was created for external attacks. Naturally, it cannot defend against nuclear explosions that erupt internally. It is equivalent to disintegrating the enemy from within. Of course, none of the senior officials at Ascension Glory thought of this. They were just thinking that if Daxia officials really tracked the location of the 4th experimental base, then the problem would be serious. At this moment, in the center of the crowd, a white-haired old man sitting in a wheelchair shook his head with sharp eyes. It should not be the official work of Daxia. If Daxia officials really tracked down the number 4 experimental base, it is impossible to directly use devastating strike weapons to annihilate it before the investigation. For us, Daxia officials are very tight-lipped. Will they not cherish such a good opportunity? The words of the white-haired old man were actually the thoughts of the other core operators present. In recent years, Ascending Glory has developed extremely rapidly. It has begun to gradually show its fangs. Because of this, it was naturally corrected by the building officials. If the number 4 experimental base was discovered through tracing, it would be impossible to destroy it before investigation. But then, what could be the reason? According to the system records, the number 4 experimental base was conducting operation number 4532 just before the connection was disconnected. That is, releasing 30 unstable mutants into the Imperial capital through space cracks, causing riots and at the same time letting more people know about the existence of mutants. Among the crowd, a man who looked like a middle-aged scholar said slowly. Then, he pondered for a moment, frowned slightly, and said with some uncertainty. Is there a possibility that the instability of the space cracks caused the space to collapse, thus destroying the number 4 temporary base? Hearing this, the other person standing opposite him suddenly cursed. My surname is Wang. The temporary space transmission technology was developed by me. This technology has gone through tens of thousands of experiments. It is a stable technology. It is absolutely impossible for it to suddenly collapse. You are throwing dirty water. This man has a strange appearance. His head is longer and vertically longer than that of an ordinary person (DBCG), and his eyes protrude like a hyperthyroid patient. The overall look is like an alien in some movie. I'm just saying it's possible. Dr. Zhang, you don't need to be so excited. The man who looked like a middle-aged scholar frowned, obviously unhappy with the other party's swearing. After hearing this, the man called Dr. Zhang, who looked as ugly as an alien, just wanted to continue to say something. Then he was interrupted by the white-haired old man sitting in a wheelchair. Quiet. As soon as he spoke. It's like there is some special magic. Dr. Zhang immediately shut his mouth. Even though he stared at the man opposite him fiercely, he said no more. No matter what the reason was, the number 4 temporary base was annihilated. The experimental data of all experimental bases are uploaded to the Central Intelligence System in real time, and the losses in this area are negligible. At last, Ascension System. He spoke softly. The Central Intellectual Brain System begins to change. After verifying the old man's identity through various means, it was transformed into the so-called Ascension System. There are several areas on the panel of the Ascension System, and each area represents an underground experimental base. Among them, the area representing the number 4 underground experimental base has turned dazzling red, thinking that the central control system of the base has been destroyed. The apostle species, which are exclusively connected and controlled by the Ascension System, rather than controlled by the central brain system, are still connected. The old man slowly stretched out his finger. Subsequently, a strange scene happened. I saw the seemingly mechanical core of the Ascension System. Unexpectedly, flesh and blood tentacles like biological tentacles were quietly stretched out. Those fine flesh and blood tentacles slowly extended. The winding wrapped around the old man's index finger. The sound of gnawing and chewing came from it. On the old man's hand, scarlet blood flowed down the arm. However, he didn't seem to notice it at all, and his expression was calm as usual. But, adertisement. Except for him, everyone present, including Dr. Zhang and another man who had a dispute earlier, there was an almost crazy enthusiasm in his eyes. This is, on the land of Daxia. Is it the first time to welcome the arrival of the Apostle? The bottom of the nuclear blast pit. A box that looks ordinary. To say it is unremarkable is actually wrong. Because, in that nuclear explosion disaster, all man-made things were completely destroyed. Only it, as if unaffected, lay quietly at the bottom of this thousands-meter deep pit. Suddenly, it was as if they sensed some kind of connection. This ordinary box suddenly began to tremble. Then, that shell, which even a nuclear explosion could not destroy, was actually broken by some kind of being in the box. With the shell of the box broken, a flower of flesh and blood grows out of it. The coquettish blood-red color makes people feel inexplicably frightened. But this is far from stopping, after the flower of flesh and blood grows out of the box. It grows, divides, and multiplies at an unimaginable speed. Even less than a minute, the entire pit has been filled with its flesh and blood. This is in the air. The captain of the advance team has just finished reporting to his superiors. As a result, when he came to his senses again, he planned to lead the team into the deep pit to investigate. But they discovered that at some point, the dark pit that was originally bottomless was filled with some kind of strange flesh-like biomass. What's this? As a highly trained special operations team member, even though his psychological quality was far beyond that of ordinary people, he was completely unable to understand everything he saw before him. But before he could open his mouth, his pupils suddenly shrank. All I saw was the unknown biomass filling the deep pit. It actually started to squirm slowly, and then turned into some kind of humanoid appearance, and stood up. The height alone is hundreds of meters. After seeing this scene, not just the leader of the advance team, including the other members of the advance team, their faces were all confused at this time. Because I have never seen this thing before. Not even the whole world. Even in the abyss, I have never seen anything so weird. There was clearly nothing in the giant pit just now. In the blink of an eye, it was inexplicably filled with some kind of biomass. Then, it turned around and turned into such a strange thing hundreds of meters tall. What exactly is it? Everyone in the advance team was shocked. The person called Apostle by everyone in Ascended Glory. Obviously, he also noticed the people in the sky. Its appearance is like that of a human being, with a complete trunk and limbs. But there is no hair at all, and the entire body is simply made of flesh and blood fibers. At the same time, except for hundreds of densely packed eyes, that strange face did not have any other facial features, which looked quite penetrating. But he is such a behemoth. Its speed, it simply surpasses everyone's imagination. It stretched out its hand and grabbed one of the advance team members. Before he could react, he only felt a hurricane coming, and the next moment, he was held by the Apostle and crushed. Ah, Jen, see this scene. The leader of the advance team's heart suddenly shrank. But what hit me at the same time was the cold air on my back. You know, the members of the advance team are almost all 6-star or above Mecha Masters. He himself is a 7-star Mecha Master. Just now, he saw a Jen activate the defensive force field. But in front of this strange giant, he was unable to defend himself. He was crushed instantly and turned into blood mist and fell down. In this way, this monster, what kind of strength is it? At the moment when he lost consciousness, a chill rushed from the spine to the top of the head. When he came back to his senses, the strange giant that was hundreds of meters away from him before was now in front of him. He was flying at an altitude of several hundred meters, and the strange giant was also several hundred meters high. Therefore, what stood before the leader of the advance team was a giant face covered with dense eyes. No matter how strong a person's psychological quality is, when they are stared at by hundreds of eyes, they will freeze in fear and be unable to move. Team leader. The team members' heart-rending roars came. But even if the captain of the advance team came back to his senses, it would be too late after all. Like a tomato, it was crushed. Scarlet blood mixed with viscous liquid slowly flowed along the palm of the strange giant's hand. Run, run, request support. Faced with such a disparity in power, everyone present knew that this was definitely not something they could deal with. The captain is a 7-star Mecha Master, but in front of that strange flesh and blood giant, he is fragile and vulnerable. Hold, everyone stop. That guy went to the city. Just as several people left quickly, suddenly someone yelled in the communication headset. Everyone's figure stagnated slightly and looked back. Really, that weird flesh and blood giant. At this time, it seemed that he had lost interest in several people. He did not chase them, but slowly headed towards the city hundreds of kilometers away. Several people were silent. Previously, the fear brought to them by the strange flesh and blood giant made them just want to escape. But because of this, they, who have deeply experienced the fear caused by the absolute power gap, clearly know what kind of disaster will happen if the flesh and blood giant enters the city. Brothers, one of them said with a trembling voice, looking at the flesh and blood giant moving towards the city step by step. Even though his body was still trembling slightly from fear, even though the scene of Captain and a Gen being crushed was still vivid in his mind, His throat rolled, and finally he gritted his teeth. He did not say the second half of the sentence, but rushed towards the flesh and blood person waiting in front of him alone. This is to die. The other side. The rugged man with a beard spat and cursed loudly. But after cursing, he followed the man, turned around, and rushed towards the flesh and blood giant. After the two, the rest of the advance team. The fear in his eyes was still there, but there was a hint of perseverance. After a moment of silence, figures one after another gave up hope of survival and rushed towards the flesh and blood giant. Until the end, only the last person remains. He was the youngest in the advance team. At the age of 25, he was successfully promoted to a 6-star Mecha division and entered the advance team through a rigorous selection process. At such an age and with such strength, he can definitely be called a genius among geniuses. Because of this, when everyone just turned around and headed towards the flesh and blood giant. When they passed by him, they all said to him, "Alu, my brothers are going to buy time while you go find rescue." However, when he was the last person left, watching his former teammates rushing towards the place where they knew they would die one by one, just to try to delay the flesh and blood giant before support arrived. He was also silent for a few seconds. Finally, open the communicator. A monster suspected to be above a small star appears 763 kilometers southwest of Yangcheng. The 453rd Advance Team will try their best to delay the arrival of support. Requesting the highest level of security support. Complete. When the last two words are said, he also resolutely changed direction. He rushed towards the location of the flesh and blood giant. When rushing to his teammates, look at their stunned expressions. He raised the corners of his mouth and grinned as usual. "I have finished reporting, support will be here soon. The rest is up to us. Brothers, you guys need to work harder. The captain and his family are still in the city. If I run away, I won't be able to see the captain when I go down." The afterglow of the setting sun falls on the world. A few of them happen to shine on the figures flying towards the flesh and blood giant. Someone once said that the hymn of mankind is the hymn of courage. Some people may find it objectionable. But no matter which era it is, there are always people who use their own actions to inherit the shining glory of mankind. Imperial capital. The turmoil of the mutants was quickly quelled. As the central city of Daxia, the defensive strength of the imperial capital is naturally different from other places. However, after returning to the central government office, Su Yang was left alone by Mr. Zhou. In the office, Mr. Zhou stared at Su Yang. After a long time, he slowly spoke. "After the incident, why did you let Mo Ruhuan take your two friends to leave first, but you stayed behind?" Su Yang's eyes were calm. "I made an observation and found that the strength of those mutants is around 4 stars and they do not pose a threat to me. That place is a bustling area, and if I hadn't intervened, it might have caused hundreds of casualties." Hear the words. Mr. Zhou asked back. "Then if next time the opponent you encounter is stronger than you and will pose a threat to you, will you stay or leave?" Su Yang thought for a while and shook his head. "It depends." "Wrong." Mr. Zhou stopped Su Yang. His eyes suddenly became extremely sharp. "As an abyssal one and also the captain of Zero, the responsibility you bear is heavier than you think. You can take risks and sacrifice. But that's when you're in the abyss. What you and your team members need to face is the abyss that may cause a world-class disaster in the future. Some people will help you deal with the matters in the main world. From now on, as long as they are beyond your ability, you will retreat without your intervention. Do you understand?" However, just as Mr. Zhou finished speaking, before Su Yang could speak, suddenly someone walked in and whispered something in Mr. Zhou's ear. During this process, Su Yang keenly observed. After hearing this news, Mr. Zhou's pupils shrank slightly. At the same time, the little finger of his left hand curled up slightly unconsciously. It can be seen. Something big must have happened. Otherwise, Mr. Zhou, who has always been calm and steady, would never have such a reaction. As for what exactly it is, could it be one? Did his 2 nuclear blast attacks from Yuannang nuclear sword just find the culprit who created the mutants? What I just said, you go back and think about it carefully. Go back. Su Yang was thinking. After Mr. Zhou said these words, he hurriedly left his forehead. This also confirmed what Su Yang was thinking. something big must have happened. After leaving the office, Mr. Zhou's face became more and more serious. 700 kilometers outside Yangcheng, a nuclear explosion crater appeared inexplicably. Then, from the deep pit, a flesh and blood giant hundreds of meters tall appeared. The biological strength is at 8 stars, or even above 8 stars. In the main world, why do such monsters appear? Mr. Zhou took a deep breath. I can't bear to think so much. This intensity exists. Yangcheng is just a second-tier city. Its defense system was absolutely unable to resist the attack of the flesh and blood giant. Thinking of this, Mr. Zhou entered the secret office, opened the permission system, and connected to the special department. Teoti, brave troops, you two, set off immediately to Yangcheng and kill the target. After arranging the personnel to perform the killing mission, Mr. Zhou thought for a while and contacted the Abyss Research Institute. Dispatch the person in charge of biological research to go to the scene and prepare to conduct blood and flesh sample testing after the kill mission is completed. Chapter 71. After arranging all this, Mr. Zhou finally had time to calm down and think about the cause of this unexpected incident. According to the Yangcheng ruling report, what happened is as follows. In the wilderness hundreds of kilometers away from Yangcheng, nuclear explosion level energy fluctuations appeared inexplicably. Nuclear explosion level energy fluctuations blasted out a bottomless underground space, both in depth and radius, enough to accommodate an entire underground base. If it is like this, Mr. Zhou's eyelids drooped slightly. But the look under his eyelids. But it is like the eagle that hunts the sky, so sharp that people dare not look directly at it. Are they? The guys from Ascension to Glory. If so, what happened to this nuclear explosion? The internal experiment failed, or was attacked by others. If it was one of our people, I should have received the report by now, but, no. Then, it should be the result of the failure of the internal experiment of Ascension Glory. The previous mutant turmoil in the imperial capital, in terms of time, coincides with the time node of the nuclear explosion level energy explosion. So, it was caused by the collapse of the space channel. Mr. Zhou quickly thought of this link. Just like the white-haired old man at the Ascension Glory headquarters at that time. However, these are easy to explain. Only, what happened to the flesh and blood giant? Mr. Zhou's eyes were thinking, but he was still unable to come up with a reasonable explanation. Ding! Real-time combat video broadcast is about to start projection. In front of you, the intelligence system issued a prompt. After verifying the identity, the real-time scene of the battle ahead was projected in front of Mr. Zhou. On the screen, countless advanced team members are conducting special operations around the flesh and blood giant. However, most of them are useless efforts. That body is as huge as a mountain peak. That's a degree of agility that's out of proportion to his size. And that face without facial features but covered with dense eyes. Even Mr. Zhou, who was extremely experienced, couldn't tell what this was. Whether in the main world or in the abyss, no one has ever discovered this kind of existence. However, based on basic judgment, able to maintain such a huge body shape, he also possesses such terrifying agility. The physical strength of this flesh and blood giant. I'm afraid it has reached 9 stars. Just looking at it. It doesn't seem to be good at energy attacks. Almost all attacks are in the form of hand-to-hand combat. Ascension to Glory. Those rats. It is impossible to have the ability to create such a creature. Mr. Zhou's brows furrowed even more tightly. He knew very well that no matter how powerful Ascension Glory's technology was, but wanting to create a flesh and blood monster that reaches the 9-star level is simply a fantasy. Otherwise, that group of rats must have come to the stage from the shadows long ago and openly screamed with the major countries. So, this is more like a kind of Ascension to Glory treasure obtained by chance. They only master certain usages, but not the ability to create them. This seems like a reasonable explanation. Thinking of this, Mr. Zhou felt a little relieved. Who in this world can master the ability to create such a monster? Perhaps he really has the power to subvert the country. After Mr. Zhou left, Su Yong did not return directly to her residence. Because, starting an hour ago, he felt something, a very strange feeling. It felt like there was something guiding me closer. This sense of guidance became stronger and stronger, and in the end, it was even so strong that Su-young felt like there was a pair of invisible big hands pulling him in one direction. Where does this feeling come from? Su-young thought about it carefully for a long time. Finally discovered, this attraction is so strong that it's almost irresistible. It actually came from that black core. The black core is connected to Su-young's soul. That's why it gave Su-young the illusion that he was being led along. This feeling, want to go, Su-young weighed it in his heart. That mysterious black core, for me now, it is almost a bug-level artifact. Each of its abilities is enough to bring endless benefits to itself. Now, it's clearly craving something. This is a phenomenon that has never happened before. If nothing else happens, this time, it is most likely a bigger opportunity. Thinking of this, Su-young no longer hesitated. I decided to follow my heart and take a look to see what it was that made the black core show such a strong desire. Now that I have decided to do it, Su-young set off immediately. After determining the direction of attraction, from this direction, a city far away from the imperial capital was selected. After teleporting to this location, depending on whether the direction of attraction changes or not, it is decided whether to continue away from the imperial capital or to approach the imperial capital. This method, called the dichotomy method, can reduce the time spent to a greater extent. It only took less than half an hour. After 3 teleportations, Su-young locked onto a city, Yangcheng. If nothing else happens, the thing that caused the black core to react strongly is near Yangcheng. But, now I have a problem. The city where Su-young is located has closed the teleportation channel to Yangcheng. According to the staff of the Teleportation Bureau, a monster appeared in Yangcheng, and the general public should not go to Yangcheng unless necessary. Monster. Su-young was keenly aware of some differences. If this monster refers to a mutant, then it is absolutely impossible for Yangcheng officials to close the transmission channel in such a big way. Although Yangcheng is only a second-level city in Daxia, the security force within it is enough to easily wipe out a group of mutants. So, the so-called monsters definitely do not refer to mutants. But if it's not a mutant, could it be an abyssal invasion? Just when Su-young was doubting this possibility, he accidentally overheard the conversation of several passers-by. What's going on in Yangcheng? Didn't the previous news say that an inexplicable nuclear explosion exploded near Yangcheng, and now it's a monster? How come monsters appear in the main world? Why do you feel like the world is about to change? None of us are mecha masters. If monsters really appear in the main world, we will definitely be the first to die, right? 1. Near Yangcheng, there was a nuclear explosion. When Su-young heard this sentence, he was slightly stunned. Then he immediately reacted. These should be the 2 nuclear explosive swords he sent over through the space channel. So, those guys who created the mutants at least have a base near Yangcheng. Thinking of this, Yang no longer wastes time. Since the transmission channel is closed, then rush directly to the scene. Out of the city limits, Su-young summoned the accompanying mecha. The acceleration device is fully loaded, and according to the guidance of the black core, it moves towards the goal, reaching twice the speed of sound. At a terrifying speed of twice the speed of sound. It didn't take long for Su-young to finally realize what the so-called monster was. In the distance, a huge mountain-like figure is fighting 2 mecha masters. This is a giant. This level of body type, even compared to the 3 lava dragons Su-young saw in the abyss, it was several times larger. Just standing there, the visual effect of blocking out the sky and the sun often causes the so-called monophobia. Not to mention, its face without facial features is filled with dense eyes. The thing the black core craves is it. Although Su-young is still far away from the weird flesh and blood giant. But the attraction brought by the black core clearly points to that weird flesh and blood giant. What are you doing? Su-young was a little helpless. But at this moment, there was a sudden huge earthquake on the ground. It turned out that it was the strange flesh and blood giant who had one of his legs cut off by one of the mecha masters. He lost his support and fell straight to the ground. In the air, 2 figures stood side by side. Astonishingly, it was the Teoti and Pixiu mentioned by Mr. Joe. Both of them are extremely powerful 9-star mecha masters. He is a strong man standing at the top of Daxia. At the same time, he is also the ace in the mysterious department that only belongs to the central government. At this time, Pixiu is holding a huge black sickle in his hand. On the blade of the black scythe, arcs of energy flashed that could tear everything apart, and even distorted the surrounding space. Just now, it was he who used this sickle to cut off the legs of the strange flesh and blood giant. This guy is really a bit difficult to deal with. My physical body is so strong that it took my 9 hell scythe 3 times to break. Pixiu said coldly, frowning. Even in the abyss, he has never seen such an existence. Although it seems now that he and Teodi should be enough to kill him. However, this level of existence appears in the main world, which is definitely not a good sign. Whatever, just kill him. Beside him, Teodi's hands, holding a giant hammer with a special shape. He faced the strange and fleshy giant on the ground who was struggling to get up. Swooping down from the air, the giant hammer in his hand landed on the head of the flesh and blood giant. Boom! With a loud bang, the ground within a radius of 10 miles collapsed and sunk instantly. With just one hammer, the power it caused was several times greater than a nuclear explosion, and it directly created a terrifying pit with a radius of more than 10 kilometers. As for the flesh and blood giant, its head was sunken into the ground, and the flesh and blood on its neck pulled its lower body, causing it to tilt up slightly, forming an extremely strange scene. The next second, Teodi's figure emerges from the depths. Flying out of the pit, 5.6 returned to Pixiu's side. As for the giant hammer in his hand, there were still some sticky pieces of flesh and blood on it, making it look extremely bloody. Mission completed. Let's go. Far away, Su Yong witnessed the battle firsthand. In my heart, there were waves that could not be calmed for a long time. This is a 9-star mecha master. That hammer just now. After falling, the ground with a radius of more than 10 kilometers collapsed and collapsed, forming a life-limited area similar to a crater. This level of power far exceeds the power of elemental nuclear sword and magnetic storm orbital ray. Therefore, it can only be a 9th level attack. With emotion. Besides being powerful, Su Yong can't think of any other adjectives. One day, will I also have this kind of power? Su Yang's eyes were hot. This was the first time he had seen a strong man of this level. But after longing for it, he suddenly realized that even though the flesh and blood giant was dead, that strong sense of attraction has not disappeared. Even dead. With this confusion, Su Yang's heartbeat quickened. Maintaining mimicry disguise, turning into an inconspicuous animal. Start little by little, getting closer to the corpse of the strange flesh and blood giant. In the process of getting closer, the attraction that comes from the black core becomes stronger and stronger. On Su Yang's head, silhouettes would plunder from time to time. From the looks of it, they should all be mecha masters who came to maintain order and prevent other people from approaching. Relying on the camouflage ability of mimic camouflage, Su Yong below was not discovered at all. Before this, Su Yong had done experiments, using a life detection device to detect himself disguised as a state. The final result is that it cannot be detected. As for why mimic camouflage can block life detection, Su Yang's theoretical knowledge cannot explain it at all. Perhaps the black core has some of the most advanced anti-detection technology, or there is some other core technology. In short, it just works. About 20 minutes passed. Su Yong successfully reached the corpse of the flesh and blood giant. Here is the only remaining left leg area of the flesh and blood giant. As for the severed right leg, it fell to another place several hundred meters away. When Su Yong approached here, the black core did not separate out, but continued to maintain the form of mimetic armor covering Su Yang's body. Feel the guidance of the black core. Su Yong, who was currently mimicking a squirrel, stretched out his little paws and gently touched the body of the flesh and blood giant. Then, a strange scene appeared. I saw Su Yang's little paw. Several tentacle-like things separated out. It is somewhat similar to the mechanical tentacles released by the black core when it performs intelligent brain invasion, but it is not exactly the same. Those tentacles pierced the body of the 31 flesh and blood giant, and then like the roots of a plant, they began to go deep, deep. The other side, Dr. Xie Yang, from the Biological Research Department of the Abyss Research Institute, is collecting biological samples with his assistant near the head area of the flesh and blood giant. Dr. Xie Yang is obviously much older than Anyan and Marong Si. He is about 40 years old and is a bald middle-aged man. At this time, his eyes were full of heat, and he looked at the corpse of the flesh and blood giant in front of him as if he were looking at a treasure. What an outstanding natural creation. Such strong muscle fibers, such a powerful biological structure. Its intensity has even reached 9 stars. 3 attacks of XS-level weapons. Just cut off its legs. Of course, it is precisely because of this terrifying strength of flesh and blood. It also brought certain problems to his research. That is, blood samples are easy to collect, but blood and flesh samples, how to obtain them? There are no 9-star Mecha Masters present, and there are no XS-level cutting tools. How should we cut the samples? Just when Dr. Xie Yang was struggling and planning to ask Mr. Zhou for support, the corpse of the flesh and blood giant in front of him suddenly shrank at a strange speed. It looked like a full inflated balloon that suddenly had a hole poked in it and became deflated. This scene, Dr. Xie Yang and the other assistants were all dumbfounded. What's happening here? They tried to stop it. But I don't know how to stop it. Because in fact, they have no idea what happened. Almost in the blink of an eye. The corpse of the flesh and blood giant was originally huge. In the blink of an eye, only a thin layer of skin was left, drooping on the ground, like a prop in a shadow puppet show. What happens? Dr. Xie Yang's face was filled with heartache. Is it possible that the corpse of this flesh and blood giant can only last for a certain period of time and will automatically dissolve when it expires? How could there be a creature with such a weird setting? This obviously violates the laws and regulations of nature. Just when Dr. Xie Yang and his assistants were running around anxiously. The other side, Su Yang hasn't reacted yet. The originally huge corpse of the flesh and blood giant in front of him only had a thin layer of skin left. In his hand, the densely packed tentacles retreated from the corpse of the flesh and blood giant, took back Su Yang's palm, turned into mimicry material, and covered it again. This scene made Su Yang dumbfounded. It seems like the black core directly sucked out all the flesh and blood from the flesh and blood giant. What the hell is this? Su Yang was about to get messy. Suddenly, the black core panel popped up. Activated functions: energy dimensionality, intelligence, brain invasion, mimetic disguise, flesh and blood apostle. Su Yang. Sure enough, it was as he had expected. The black core has an additional ability called Flesh Apostle. Just how to use this ability? Is it possible? He was able to pass through the black core, re-summon the strange flesh and blood giant that died just now. Is this impossible? That guy is dead. If dead things can be resurrected, that would be an exaggeration. Thinking of this, Su Yang tried to click on the Flesh Apostle column. It turns out that it can actually be opened. Flesh Apostle. Flesh Giant completeness 80%, life regeneration 0%, stagnation. Su Yang. No, can I really summon that flesh and blood giant again? I have witnessed with my own eyes how powerful that thing is. At least in terms of physical strength, it has reached 9 stars. Such a powerful existence has become his own apostle. Absurd, weird, unreal. Su Yang feels a little dizzy now. Be mentally prepared even before coming. You will definitely encounter a good opportunity. But he never thought that this opportunity would be so exaggerated. According to the current situation, wait until the so-called life reconstruction degree reaches 100%. Is it equivalent to having a flesh and blood apostle with a body strength of 9 stars? Is this the value of having? Su Yang took a deep breath. Finally, I accepted this seemingly impossible ability. Only, at present, the completeness of Flesh Giant is only 80%. Because it is incomplete, the life reconstruction degree has also stagnated. Thinking of this, Su Yang suddenly looked at the right leg of the flesh and blood giant not far away and ran away. Soon, Su Yang came to the right leg of the flesh and blood giant. Because the body has been exhausted by Su Yang through the black core. Dr. Xie Yang and others endured the heartache and transferred it from their bodies to this place. In this case, no one would notice Su Yang in mimicry disguise at all. Su Yang can also easily absorb the last 20% of the flesh and blood giant's body and then escape. Then, after Su Yang completed the extraction and quickly fled the scene of the crime, Dr. Xie Yang, who was already heartbroken, once again watched helplessly as his right leg shrank rapidly like his torso before, leaving only a thin piece of skin. Dr. Xie Yang, a bald man with a desperate look in his eyes, felt like he was about to have a heart attack. But despite this, he still held on and reported to Mr. Zhou. After escaping from the scene of the crime, Su Yang returned directly to the imperial capital without stopping at all. After the flesh and blood giant was killed, the transmission channel in Yangcheng was opened. So Su Yang returned to the imperial capital without spending much time. At the same time, the black core was also used to erase the transmission records. So, when Su Yang returned to the imperial capital, it can be said that no one knew that he had ever been to Yangcheng. Maybe no one would connect him with what happened in Yangcheng. After all, in the eyes of outsiders, Su Yang and Yangcheng are simply incompatible. Return to your residence. Su Yang suddenly remembered sisters Chen Anan and Chen Luoyan, and sent a message to Mo Ruhuan asking about their situation. After Mo Ruhuan replied, Su Yang found out that Mo Ruhuan did not bring Chen Anan and Chen Luoyan back to his residence at all. As for the reason, it is because this is the central government, and the identities of sisters Chen Anan and Chen Luoyan are inappropriate. However, Mo Ruhuan still placed the two of them in a high-end hotel in the imperial capital, so there was no need to worry. Yeah, I was in a hurry at the time, but I didn't think of this. Su Yang lay on the bed and thought like this. But it's not a big problem, we have our last day off tomorrow. Just wait until tomorrow to accompany Chen Anan, Chen Luoyan and the others. As for today, very rewarding. Not only did it destroy a base for manufacturing mutants. More importantly, the new ability of the Black Core is activated, and the ability to summon Flesh Apostle is gained. Correct. Su Yang suddenly sat up from the bed. The Flesh and Blood Giant is under the column of Flesh Apostle. Does this mean, in addition to Flesh and Blood Giants, the Black Core can also help me obtain more Flesh and Blood Apostles? If this is really the case, then when the number of Flesh Apostles increases, will I alone be able to defeat the country? I believe that no one can resist this temptation. Just imagine, in addition to its own strength, if you can still control many apostles whose strength is comparable to that of 9 stars, let them fight under your command. Just thinking about it is enough to be exciting. But these are all external things. If you really want to become stronger, you still have to improve your own strength. For example, the 2 9-star Mecha Masters we saw today, even powerful beings like Flesh and Blood Giants, will still be killed by them. I don't know when I will be able to become a 9-star Mecha Master. Get up the next day. As usual, the practice of spiritual contracting is carried out. After successfully collecting a light point, the Mecha's core compatibility increased again, from 4 stars 6% to 4 stars 10%. Although it seems that the growth rate is not large, it is actually several times that of ordinary geniuses. After completing the spirit contract method, I took a look at the Black Core. Flesh Giant Life Reconstruction Degree, 2%. Good. At this rate, if it doesn't change, at the slowest, within 50 days, life reconstruction can reach 100%. At that time, he will be able to summon a Flesh and Blood Giant with a strength of 9 stars as his subordinate. Just thinking about it makes me look forward to it. Put away the Black Core. Today is the last day of vacation. Yesterday, I was supposed to accompany sisters Chen Anan and Chen Luoyan to visit the imperial capital. As a result, due to the sudden mutant incident, we failed to get what we wanted in the end, so let's make some compensation today. Thinking of this, Su Yang sent a message to Chen Anan, and naturally received a quick response. After a little preparation, he set off to enjoy the last day of his vacation. Happy times always end quickly. Being accompanied by a pair of sisters like Chen Anan and Chen Luoyan is both eye-catching and a relief from boredom. Coupled with Mo Ruhuan, the enthusiastic guide of the imperial capital, it can be said that we had a great time throughout the whole day. At night, when we were about to say goodbye, there were even some lingering thoughts. But as the saying goes, there is no never-ending feast. Su Yang is very clear, after today, I have to devote myself wholeheartedly to the special training of the Abyssal One. There should be very few holidays like this in the future. In this regard, he also explained the situation to Chen Anan and Chen Luoyan, and wished them a happy college life. When they parted, Chen Anan was obviously a little reluctant to leave. But she also knew that a genius like Su Yang was destined to shine his own light in this era, and it would be impossible for him to always be with them. In the days to come, the two of them will most likely be like two parallel lines, drifting apart. Faced with the facts before her eyes, Chen Anon hesitated several times. She knew that she and Su Yang might not have much intersection in the future. So she wanted to give Su Yang the girl's last gift at the end. After Su Yang and Mo Ruhuan left, Chen Luoyan seemed to see what was on her sister's mind. She smiled softly and rubbed her sister's little head. You are now 18 years old. If you want to do something, if you won't regret it, just do it. Don't leave yourself any regrets. Beware of the girl's thoughts being noticed by her sister. Two blushes suddenly appeared on Chen Anon's cheeks. However, before she could speak, Chen Luoyan smiled and shook the key card in her hand. I booked a room in another hotel, and I won't come back to sleep tonight. You should also have a good rest. Chen Luoyan's final voice was very long. There was even a sly smile in his eyes. Then, without waiting for her sister to say anything, she turned around and left calmly. What? Chen Anon pursed his lips. He lowered his head, and the blush on both sides of his cheeks was as hot as drops of blood. It is said that the most beautiful thing about a girl is the shyness when she lowers her head. At this moment, this feeling and this scene are heart-wrenching. After returning to the residence, Su Yang originally planned to take a rest and then go to bed early. It's the first day of special training, and I don't know what to do yet. Suddenly, I received news from Chen Anon. Su Yang, I prepared a gift for you, but I forgot to give it to you just now. Can you come over here? I want to hand it over to you personally. Gift. Su Yang was slightly startled. Although I don't know what it is. But this is what the girl wants after all. It would be too unkind to refuse. Thinking of this, Su Yang got up again and headed towards the address sent by Chen Anon. The entrance of Tinghua Hotel. Su Yang saw Chen Anon waiting downstairs. The girl stood by the road, but her hands were empty, and it didn't look like she had received a gift at all. I saw Su Yang coming. Chen Anon's eyes suddenly lit up. There were two cute dimples on that sweet face. The gift is in the room. Chen Anon's voice was thin and weak. But she, who had always been shy, didn't know where the courage came from. Without waiting for Su Yang to react, he stretched out his hand, took Su Yang's hand, and led him straight to the room. The girl's skin was soft and boneless, with a slightly warm touch, which touched Su Yang's heart slightly. Under this touch, Su Yang was led to the door of the room by Chen Anon without knowing it, and followed him to the door. Logically speaking, there should be Chen Luoyan, right? Why is it empty? Su Yang was a little confused. But he didn't wait to ask. Chen Anon closed the door with his backhand. With secret love in mind, even if the cheeks are as red as blood. Even though the body is shaking slightly from the attempt of courage. But still, he pressed Su Yang in front of the door. Gently tiptoeing, give the girl her first kiss. As a teenager. It's the time when the blood is strong. The fragrant wind enters the arms, as warm and soft as jade. Sweet beauty, willingly obey. It is said that a spring night is worth 1,000 pieces of gold. How many people in the world can resist such a thing? Early morning, when Su Yang opened his eyes. But suddenly he found that the person beside him had left. Only a piece of paper with elegant handwriting was left aside. Su Yang, I like you. Last night, that was my gift to you. Even though I know that we may rarely meet again in the future, I am willing to give myself to you. You must never have any worries. This is my choice, my 18th year, and my willingness. I'm going to find my sister first. I should be returning to Hangzhou later. You have to work hard. I believe you will become the most powerful person in the world. The final stroke of pen. It's Chen Anon's signature, and it has a cute smiling face. Su Yang took a deep breath. Leaning on the bedside, the scenes from last night are still vivid in my mind. The girl's clumsiness and embarrassment, and the strong and rich love. Anyway, this is his first time since coming to this world. Unexpectedly, it would be eliminated in this way. But, anyway, Chen Anon, this should be considered my first love now, right? There may not be any intersection in the future. This is all something humans can change. I am a face-faced person, and I am not a martyr or a death squad. How could I say it so exaggeratedly? Thinking of this, Su Yong thought for a while and sent a message to Chen Anan. When I finish this training camp, if I have a holiday, I will go find you. Study hard in college. If you have any questions, you can ask me. If someone bullies you, you can also tell me. I will definitely help you teach him a lesson. Finished sending the message. He glanced at the time. Exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark, question mark, question mark, question mark. There are less than 10 minutes left before the special training gathering. Su Yong immediately put on his clothes and ran towards the central government office quickly. On the way back to Hangzhou, Chen Anan was looking out the window absent-mindedly. Everything last night was a gift she gave to Su Yong, a beautiful memory she left for her 18th year. Although I wrote it, I don't care what happens in the future. But after all, there will still be a sense of loss. Ding! At this moment, news came from the communication system. Chen Anan's body suddenly tensed up. She didn't know if this news came from Su Yong. If it were from Su Yong, what would he say? Will you blame yourself for what you did yesterday without permission? Do you think you want to use this method to live with him? Chen Anan was very scared, but in the end, she couldn't hold it back and took a look at the news. What's wrong? Is it Su Yong? Beside, Sister Chen Loyan asked with a smile. Yesterday, she had already anticipated what her sister was going to do. Today, perhaps it is through the telepathy between sisters, or through the sixth sense of being a girl. She knew very clearly that her sister had fulfilled her wish. While reading information, Chen Anan froze on the spot. Only when he heard his sister's question did he come back to his senses. But before, there was always a touch of sadness in Chen Anan's eyes, but now, it's replaced by a girl's joy. What did he say? Chen Loyan was keenly aware of the changes in her sister and asked Kair to help. No, nothing. Chen Anan shook his head in panic. The little deer in my heart can't stop bumping around. Su Yang's meaning was expressed very clearly, how could she not understand? After hiding that joy in her heart, she looked at Chen Loyan eagerly. Quote. You have to keep what happened last night a secret for me. The Chen family's tutoring has always been very strict. If you knew that you had given away your baby Li's baby for the first time when you were just 18 years old, you don't know what would happen. I know, I can't betray you, Chen Loyan said with a smile. In his eyes, a trace of undetectable envy flashed. At the same time, the other side, central government. Today, it's the end of the holidays. The day of special training for Abyss-Faced One begins. Vice Captain Marong Nian and team members such as Zhuang Yan, and Chen Jia are already here. Captain Su Yong hasn't arrived yet. However, there is only less than 4 minutes left before the end. Today's instructor is not the head of the Abyss Research Institute, but Deng Mao, the captain of the Imperial Guard of the central government. Specially responsible for training, strengthening, and improving everyone's melee combat skills. At this time, he frowned and glanced at the watch on his wrist. At this moment, Su Yong arrived late. The people who passed by were already in place and stood in their positions. Seeing that Su Yong was not late, Captain Deng Mao's brows softened slightly. However, Marong Nian's brows furrowed tightly. In those cold beautiful eyes, there was a flash of murderous intention. Not only her, but Mo Ruhuan, who is also a girl, fell directly into a state of confusion. Just now, when the captain ran over, it brings a faint fragrance. That's right, it just smells like a girl. As a girl myself, I am very familiar with this smell. Only, why does the captain have this smell? Could it be? Mo Ruhuan thought of the two sisters Chen Anan and Chen Loyan. As a tour guide at the time, she actually observed carefully when she and others visited the imperial capital. She is not sure about the elder sister of the two sisters, but her younger sister, Chen Anan, is 100% in love with the captain. That kind of undisguised love can be seen by anyone who comes over. In this way, could it be the captain? Mo Ruhuan's heart moved. Then his eyes unconsciously fell to Marong Nian, who was standing aside. Among the five, only she and Marong Nian were girls and were more sensitive to this smell. Looking at Zhuang Yan and Chen Jia, they didn't notice anything was wrong at all. So, did the vice captain notice it? Mo Ruhuan noticed. Murong Nyen's brows were already furrowed tightly. Although her eyes cannot be seen, if nothing else happens, she already contains murderous intent. Well, the premise is that Vice Captain Murong really has some special thoughts about the captain. If not, there shouldn't be any special reaction. Mo Ruhuan was eating melon. Opposite the 5 men was Deng Mao, captain of the Imperial Guard. Then he looked at the 5 people who had arrived with a serious expression and announced, "Warm up a little and start today's training in 5 minutes. So close. Almost late." During the warm-up, Su Yong breathed a sigh of relief. If I didn't act quickly, I would most likely be late on the first day. Although I don't know what the consequences of being late will be, punishment is certainly unavoidable. This is a special training for facial facers, not some playhouse training camp. 380 but follow the course. Today is close combat training. The burly man in front of me. I heard he was the captain of the Central Guards. As a result, his melee combat ability is definitely among the best in the entire Great Sha. Although I always ranked first in the melee combat class in high school, in comparison, I still have quite a few shortcomings. I just took this opportunity to hone my melee combat abilities. Just when Su Yong was thinking so, Mo Ruhuan didn't know when she quietly came over. "Hey, Captain." Mo Ruhuan's voice was very quiet, as if he was afraid of being heard by others. Seeing this, Su Yong was slightly startled. "What's wrong? Did you fool around with a girl last night?" Su Yong. Although Su Yong did not answer, but seeing this look on Su Yang's face, Mo Ruhuan was already mostly convinced in her heart. Really, is the captain still captured by that sweet and lovely girl? No wonder, when I passed by the vice captain just now, I felt a vague sense of resentment. Thinking of this, Mo Ruhuan decided to kindly remind the captain not to be. "Warm-up is over. Return to your position." Before Mo Ruhuan could speak, the instructor, Captain Deng Mao, ordered everyone to return to their positions. Mo Ruhuan had no choice but to sigh, show a contented expression towards Su Yong, and return to his position. Su Yong was a little baffled by this and stopped paying attention. On the training ground, Deng Mao looked at the 5 people in front of him. He has a stern expression, his eyes are as sharp as a wolf, and his gait is like a tiger's. As one of the captains of the Central Guards, his strength is unquestionable. Facing Su Yong and the 5 others, his eyes were calm and his voice was low, like a beast in hunting. "Everyone, this is the first time we meet, let me introduce myself. My surname is Deng, my single name is Mao, the captain of the main guard of the Central Palace, the 8-star Mecha Master. Starting today, you will be given 2 hours of special close combat training every morning. As Abyss Facers, you will encounter many dangers in the Abyss in the future. Sometimes, outstanding melee combat abilities may be able to save your life. 8-star Mecha Master. Even if it was expected before. Being able to serve as the captain of the Central Guard and be responsible for teaching everyone close combat courses, the strength of the instructor is definitely not weak. But I didn't expect that he would be an 8-star Mecha Master. What is the concept of 8-star Mecha Master? One person can destroy a city. I took a look at your high school melee combat results. Except for Chen Jia, everyone else is almost the same and barely passed." Hear the words. Su Yang's eyes twitched slightly. My own melee combat performance is almost always the best. In the end, in the eyes of Instructor Deng, this was just barely qualified. Besides, if Zhuang Yan's results are almost the same as his, Su Yang is not too surprised. After all, Zhuang Yan looks tall and strong, and he is more capable of fighting at first glance. What surprised him a little was that 2 girls, Murong Yan and Mo Ruhuan, were able to be on par with him, which was kind of interesting. In melee combat, there are no shortcuts except training. The central government has equipped you with the most advanced medical equipment and medical personnel. As long as the injuries are not serious enough to cause amputation, disability, or death, they are allowed. Starting from today, Chen Jia will be in a group with me. Among the 4 of you, Su Yang will be in a group with Zhuang Yan, and Murong Yan will be in a group with Mo Ruhuan. After hearing the arrangements for grouping of personnel, Chen Jia's face suddenly turned pale. The melee combat course is his weakest link. As a result, I had to undergo special training, one-on-one with the instructor. That would definitely be worse than life. But, except Chen Jia. Apparently there are still people who are dissatisfied with the grouping. I saw Murong Nian slowly raising his hand. Seeing this, Dang Mao frowned and asked Murong Nian what happened. Instructor Dang, I want to team up with Su Yang. Hear the words. Dang Mao locked eyes with Murong Nian and asked. Why? Murong Nian glanced at Su Yang and spoke slowly. She's not strong enough. My opponent can only be Su Yang. After the words fell, the atmosphere at the scene was a little subtle. One of the parties involved was Mo Ruhuan. There was no embarrassment in his eyes, but instead there was immense expectation. She knew very well that the reason why Murong Nian wanted to be with Su Yang was definitely for a purpose. And this purpose is most likely because he noticed that Su Yang was fooling around with other girls last night and wanted to take the opportunity to teach him a lesson. Really, there is true love between Murong Nian and Su Yang. The Yandere girl feels threatened by other girls. We must start declaring our sovereignty. When Mo Ruhuan was thinking about it, another client, Su Yang, come again. Starting from the award ceremony, some weird things started happening. Is this guy Murong Nian targeting me? But, no matter what Su Yang and Mo Ruhuan think, I don't know if it was because I felt Murong Nian's determination. I still appreciate her attitude of wanting to challenge stronger people. Dang Mao finally agreed to Murong Nian's request. After swapping the groups, it becomes Su Yang Murong Nian. Solemn, nothing more joyful. Dang Mao Chen Jia. A world where only Chen Jia was injured was born. After completing the grouping, Instructor Dang Mao asked each group to engage in a battle first. No accompanying mechas, no weapons, pure melee combat. The first group to start was Chen Jia and Zhao Mao himself. This battle, Dang Mao only used one hand. Then in less than 10 seconds, the battle ends. After pointing out nearly 13 mistakes to Chen Jia, he found a member of the Imperial Guard to give Chen Jia additional training. Don't beat me to death. For the rest, follow your own art. Chen Jia looked pale and wanted to cry but had no tears. He was forcibly dragged away. Next, there is a battle between Zhuang Yan and Mo Ruhuan. Have to say, it really makes sense for the two of them to reach the top 10 in the country. The fighting skills of both of them are extremely outstanding, with solemn and heavy strength, and Rose agility and illusion. In the end, no one could do anything to anyone, and there was no winner or loser. From Su Yang's perspective, both of them have excellent melee combat capabilities. But, Dang Mao just frowned and pointed out quite a few loopholes to the two of them. Many of these loopholes were things that Su Yang failed to spot. But after pointing it out and thinking about it carefully, it is indeed quite fatal. At last, it was Su Yang and Murong Nian's turn. I don't know what happened before the battle started. Looking into Murong Nian's soul-stirring eyes, even though the other person's eyes were calm, there seemed to be no emotion at all. But Su Yang always had a bad feeling. This premonition turned into reality after the battle began. Murong Nian didn't know why he was so crazy. He acted like he was fighting for his life, every move was fatal and vicious. Even though Su Yang had always been quite sure of his actual combat abilities, he was still a little unable to cope with Murong Nian's set of quick attacks. In the end, he had no choice but to grit his teeth, and after finding a loophole in Murong Nian's moves, he stopped paying attention. In an instant, his footsteps changed, his strength changed direction, and he fell to the ground. The body pressed forward, and the other hand tightly grasped Murong Nian's fair neck. Just one force was enough to break it. Su Yang, 1. Are you convinced? Su Yang looked into Murong Nian's eyes, panted slightly, and asked. Murong Nian did not speak, but his eyes always met Su Yang's and did not move away. Well, Mo Ruhuan stood aside and watched the battle. After seeing this, he reached out and gently covered his slightly opened mouth. This is so awesome. If it were placed in a romance novel. That's the arrogant and yandere genius girl. He was pushed to the ground by a god-level monster and tortured like crazy. But this is the reality, and the subsequent parts need to be deleted to avoid being inappropriate for children. Seeing that Murong Nian seemed to have given up resistance, Su Yang's eyes moved slightly, as if he had thought of something. While letting go of his hand, he stood up from Murong Nian. But at this time, Murong Nian stood up like a phantom and was about to attack Su Yang from behind. But what she didn't expect was that Su Yang had already predicted this. Just now he was just pretending to stand up and let go, but in fact he was waiting for her to make this move. Then, between the lightning and flint, Murong Nian was subdued by Su Yang again and pushed to the ground again. Facing the girl's beautiful eyes, Su Yang's lips raised slightly. How about it? This time, are you convinced or not? Facing Su Yang's questions, Murong Nian did not look directly at Su Yang like last time. Instead, he turned his head and moved his gaze to other places. Seeing this, Su Yang understood. Murong Nian, who was inexplicably crazy, was already convinced. Maybe it's just that she realized that for now, she is not her opponent, so she temporarily submitted. Anyway, this guy clearly looks like the kind of peerless beautiful girl who only exists in novels. But I don't know why, but I do some inexplicable things all day long, which is very strange. Thinking of this, Su Yang loosened his hand holding Murong Nian's white neck. Otherwise, he was afraid that he would recall the same action last night. Pa bang bang. Well done. When Su Yang got up. Beside him, Deng Mao, who had been observing the battle, spoke, with a hint of appreciation in his eyes. Although Su Yang also showed some immature loopholes and shortcomings in the battle with Murong Nian, compared to the others, he was much better. If he is trained and corrected in the future, Deng Mao believes that he will definitely grow into the most terrifying hunter in the abyss. Thank you, instructor, for your praise. Su Yang nodded gently and smiled in greeting. At the same time, he stretched out his hand towards Murong Nian, who was on the ground, gesturing for her to use his strength to get up. However, Murong Nian ignored Su Yang and stood up from the ground. Su Yang, fine, this guy, don't understand. After pointing out Su Yang and Murong Nian's flaws in actual combat respectively, Deng Mao found 4 other members of the Imperial Guard and practiced sparring with them. He himself stood on the edge and carefully observed everyone's movements, steps, and strength. Whenever the mistakes that have been pointed out are made again, the correct actions must be repeated hundreds of times to correct them. Under this almost harsh training, even Su Yang was exhausted and tired after a whole day. Even Murong Nian, who maintained his posture like a proud swan, showed a trace of exhaustion in his eyes. Very good. That's it for today. Let's all go back and rest. Chen Jia, stay and practice for another 2 hours. If you are weak in this area, you have to spend more time and energy. You are a team, a whole. If the team encounters a fatal crisis in the future because of your shortcomings in this area, you will be the sinner of the Abyssal One, do you understand? Among 5 people, Chen Jia was already relieved. After hearing that he was left alone for additional training, his eyes behind the black-rimmed glasses showed deep despair. However, he knew it too. Since I have chosen to become a face-faced person, then it is naturally impossible to hold other teammates back. In the days to come, who knows what kind of dangers we will encounter in the abyss. The sacrifices made now, the sweat left now, and the pain endured now may become a glimmer of hope in the future. Yes, instructor. Chen Jia gritted his teeth. Stand out from the crowd. I started my own extra training. Come on, come on, come on. Su Yang, Mo Ruhuan, and Zhuang Yan. Before leaving, they all cast sympathetic glances at Chen Jia and gave him a word of encouragement. Only Murong Nian communicated with everyone and returned to his residence alone, dragging his exhausted body. Follow the schedule that Mr. Zhou made for everyone. The first day of every week is a practical combat course. On the other 6 days of the week, you will follow a person in charge of the Abyss Research Institute to learn corresponding knowledge. The 6 major departments of the Abyss Research Institute are Yan, Abyss Energy Research Department; Murongxi, Special Equipment Research and Development Department; Xieyang, Mutated Biology Research Department; Weihe, Department of Abyssal Erosion and Neuroscience Research; Mingmao, Abyss Environmental Research Department; Donglei, Abyssal Community Cultural Research Department. Of these 6 departments, the research conducted by the first 5 departments is relatively easy to understand. Only the last department seemed a little abnormal. What is a study of abyssal community culture? Such confusion. On the 7th day, the answer was obtained. During the course, Dr. Dong Lei answered this confusion for everyone. There are a large number of abyssal beasts in the abyss. These beasts act entirely on instinct and are no different from ordinary monsters. But, in the depths of the abyss, there are certain intelligent abyss creatures. The most typical case is the Apostle Liuan. The apostles of the abyss not only have a human-like body, but also have human-like intelligence, and even have their own language. What kind of ethnic group can have a language? The answer is that only ethnic groups with division of labor, cooperation, and an environment similar to human society will have language. The department I led is dedicated to researching and utilizing the currently known abyss languages, cultures, and habits. At present, the results we have achieved can support our dialogue with the apostles of the abyss. Once upon a time, we captured several abyss apostles alive and interrogated them. Of course, I just didn't ask for anything. Compared with other courses, Dr. Dong Lei's course seems much easier. However, behind this course, there is actually a frightening fact hidden. That is, the degree of acquaintance between the abyss and the main world may be higher than humans imagine. If there are countries in the human world, will there be ones in the depths of the abyss? If humans can unite to resist the abyss, then the abyss, will they unite in order to invade the human world? This is a problem. There is no way to answer this kind of question until mankind completely conquers the abyss. Time flies by, and 2 months have passed. The last major exam, which had ended for a long time, has once again aroused heated discussions as various universities have started to reopen. Among this heated discussion, the most talked about was undoubtedly Su Yang, who broke the historical record in the college entrance examination at that time and was known as the strongest #1 scholar. If the central government had not announced the list of a new batch of genius youth, everyone might still be discussing which of the 4 top universities Su Yang would enter. But now, people just want to know what kind of shocks and miracles the young man known as the rising star of Great Shah will bring to them in the future after being trained by the country. Tito University. After 2 months of vacation, the annual school season has arrived as scheduled. Geniuses from all over the country come here, confidently planning to start a new journey in life. Among them are Chen Anan and Chen Luoyan from Hangzhou. The 2 sisters did very well in the college entrance examination. In the end, I got my wish and reached the score line of the 4 top universities. When choosing which university to go to, Chen Anan chose Imperial University without hesitation. The reason is naturally because the young man she admires is in the imperial capital. My sister chose Tito University. As the elder sister, Chen Luoyan naturally chose the same school. At the entrance of Tito University, freshmen entering school, especially girls, their eyes fell on a boy not far away. He has an extremely handsome face, a unique temperament, and a tall figure, a perfect male idol. Just one look at it made those girls blush and their hearts beat. I was even wondering in my heart whether he might be a student of Imperial University. If so, then the identity of the school president should be settled, right? Next to the school gate, a beautiful senior girl with long black hair and straight hair. After looking at the boy several times, he finally couldn't help but step forward. The beautiful senior sister, who was hailed as a goddess by many boys in school, showed a rather sweet smile to the boys. "Junior, are you a new student in our school? Do you need my help?" Hear the words. The boy smiled and shook his head, rejecting the beautiful senior sister's kindness. "Sorry, I'm not a student at Tito University. I'm waiting for my girlfriend here." "Ah, that's it." There was an obvious look of disappointment in the beautiful senior sister's eyes. However, she is quite confident in her appearance and figure. So he didn't give up trying, but tucked the hair from his forehead behind his ears. Point 0. Inadvertently revealing her fair and attractive neck, she smiled and issued an obvious invitation to the boy. "Then why don't you leave your contact information? We can get together in the future." The words are not finished yet. The smile on her face froze. Because the boy didn't listen to her at all, but directly abandoned her and walked towards the 2 girls not far away. And those 2 girls, no matter which one they are prettier and more elegant than her. Su Yang. After seeing Su Yang, Chen Anan's eyes lit up. We haven't seen each other for 2 months, and Su Yang seems to have a slightly different temperament than 2 months ago. With that kind of temperament, Su Yang, who is already extremely handsome, looks even more charming. Just by looking at it twice, a blush appeared on Chen Anan's face unconsciously. awaited, beside Chen Anon. Chen Luoyan smiled and nodded towards Su Yang. It's okay, I just waited for a few minutes. Su Yang waved his hand and took the salute from the two men. Today happened to be a holiday, and it was Chen Anon's first day of school, so I came over to help. We haven't seen each other for 2 months, maybe because of her new relationship, Chen Anon has become more and more beautiful. Sweet facial features, gentle temperament, a slightly taller figure, a pure school beauty. Let's go, put your luggage away, and have a meal together. How do you say something? A little farewell is better than a wedding. The night of the first day of school, Chen Anon did not go back to the school dormitory, but lived outside with Su Yang. Compared with the original shyness, this time the girl enthusiastically released her love and longing that she had accumulated for 2 months. It can be said that she is free to take whatever you want. The next day, after sending Chen Anon back to school, Su Yang returned to the central government office and ended a rare one-day vacation. But just after the vacation, I received a notice from Mr. Zhou. Tomorrow, follow Dr. Xie Yang from the Mutated Biology Research Department to the 4th level of the Abyss to perform a mission. I am very familiar with Dr. Xie Yang, Su Yang. Then, it was under his eyes that he took away the flesh and blood giant. Dr. Xie Yang's baldness is more serious than that time, and I don't know if it has anything to do with that incident. Return to your residence. Su Yang looked at the task requirements in detail. At the D1 to 4 main base on the 4th floor of the Abyss, someone discovered a new species that was not included in the Apocalypse Illustrated book somewhere 3,000 kilometers away from the main base. It's just that the unknown creature ran into an unexplored dark cave and was unable to capture it alive. You know, it has been hundreds of years since the advent of the Mecha Age, and unknown species have become very rare. Every time a new species is discovered, it can bring considerable research results. Therefore, Dr. Xie Yang sent his assistant to go to the unknown cave to capture the unknown creature. As for the Zero team, it serves as a protection mission. It needs to protect the researchers, go deep into the cave, and kill possible threats. 4th level of the Abyss. The vast majority of monsters are around 4 stars. There may be a very small number of 5-star monsters, but as for 6-star monsters, it is almost impossible to appear. 2 months have passed. Su Yang's mecha core compatibility has exceeded 4 stars and reached 5 stars. At that time, when it broke through 4 stars and reached 100%, it was promoted to the bonded spirit 5 times. Among them, the first 4 promotion light groups that were promoted to the pact spirit were all devoured by the black core, and it was not until the 5th time that the promotion was successful. In this regard, Yang no longer had the previous dissatisfaction with the 04 kingdoms. That black core is an artifact to Su Yang. It's up to you to plunder as much as you want, as long as you can finally complete your promotion. Only, after reaching 5 stars, when the spirit bonding was carried out again and the light points were collected, the degree of increase in the degree of compatibility was obviously reduced by Shuji. Even Su Yang can only provide an increase of about 2% for every light point collected. Currently, the Mecha core compatibility is 5-star 24%. As for the level, it is the same as before. As soon as the level limit is opened, the level is maxed out immediately, reaching IV.50. At this time, the panel of the Yang Companion Mecha is as follows. LV.50 Initial Mecha. Energy Reserve 100,000 units. Attributes. Maximum Strength 100 tons. Maximum Speed 1,000 meters per second. Maximum damage that can be sustained 90,000 units. With the increase of S+ level Mecha Core, the energy reserve of Su Yang, a 5-star Mecha Master alone, has reached 100,000 units. This means that the current Su Yang relies on the power of the Black Core to increase his dimension. You can already use Energy Nuclear Sword and Magnetic Storm Orbital Ray at will. At the same time, in terms of strength, it reaches 100 tons. The speed has reached a terrifying 3 times the speed of sound. Compared with ordinary 5-star Mecha Masters, such a panel is a pure dimensionality reduction. Not to mention, after being promoted to a 5-star Mecha division, Su Yang can also increase the core of the Mecha. In the past 2 months of Facial Facer special training, the course schedule was quite full. Therefore, Su Yang can only use mimic disguise at night to enter the abyss as someone else to hunt monsters and gain points. So far a total of nearly 6 million points have been accumulated. There is still a shortfall of 4 million from purchasing the core increase of the intermediate mecha with 10 million apocalypse points. As for the core increase of purchasing advanced mecha, it is still far away. That thing costs 100 million Tianqi points. This has to be saved until the year of the monkey and the month of the horse. But Su Yang is not in a hurry. As long as he has not exceeded 7 stars. Then this opportunity for growth is reserved. Although it is difficult to accumulate 100 million apocalypse points before 7 stars. But everyone has to have dreams. If you accidentally save it. Let's get a high-level mecha core boost. Maybe it can directly increase the quality of the mecha core. By the time, the amplification effect obtained is amazing. Anyway, in the past 2 months, Murong Yan was successfully promoted to a 4-star mecha master. As for Mo Ruhuan, Zhuang Yan and Chen Jia, they have all reached the promotion stage. It is uncertain when they will be able to complete the promotion of the spirit and become a 4-star mecha master. But not before that, this time go to the 4th level of the abyss. For them, it is obviously a big test. As for Su Yang, as a man who has already been killing people on the 7th and 8th levels of the abyss. This is simply a safe trip without any trouble. The next day. 0. The team gathers. After 2 months of special training, several people have lost their initial student spirit, and have gradually begun to feel like special operators. As an abyssal person, even though he is still in the growth stage, he still understands that the responsibilities on his shoulders are quite heavy. Even if he does not want to grow, he must make changes. I can't say transformation, but there is indeed something different. Are the tasks clear? In front of several people, Mr. Zhou asked in person. To be honest, a task of this level does not require Mr. Zhou to care at all. However, after all, this is the first experience of these people as the Abyssalist team, and he, the main person in charge of the Abyssal project, still needs to come forward. Clear. 10 minutes later, Su Yang led the 0 team and headed to the Abyss together with researcher Zhou from the Biological Research Department of the Abyss Research Institute. The 4th level of the Abyss. D1 to 4 main base. 5 figures appeared from the transmission channel. Surprisingly, it was the 0 team led by Su Yang and researcher Zhou who was accompanying him. According to the mission instructions, the unexplored cave is located 3,000 kilometers southwest of the main base. 3,000 kilometers. According to Su Yang's current speed of 1 kilometer per second, if he goes alone, it will only take 50 minutes, less than an hour. But the fact is, he is the only one who is a 5-star mecha master. The rest, except Murong Yan, is a 4-star mecha master. Including researcher Zhou, they were all 3-star mecha masters, so their speed was naturally much slower than him. Therefore, we can only head towards the mission location at a speed that a few people can keep up with. The distance of 3,000 kilometers is actually quite a long distance for 3-star and 4-star mecha masters. At this speed, it took half a day to cover only 2/3 of the distance. In this half day, everyone encountered quite a lot of abyssal beasts, because most of them were 4-star monsters. Although, Mo Ruhuan and others have not yet broken through to 4 stars. But after special training, facing 4-star monsters, he can still do it with ease. As for Su Yang and Murong Yan, facing 4-star monsters, they were almost instant kills. Therefore, the abyssal beasts actually do not have much impact on a few people. What really affects a few people is the erosion of the abyss. For mecha masters, the longer you stay in the abyss, the impact of abyssal erosion is more severe. The members of the 0 team have all passed the abyss adaptability test, and their abyssal compatibility is quite high. But despite this, staying in the 4th level of the abyss for half a day will still have a big impact. For example, Mo Ruhuan, Zhuang Yan and others now show a certain degree of corrosive reaction. Among the people, Chen Jia, who had the worst compatibility in the abyss, was already a little pale. As for researcher Zhou who was traveling with him, although his abyssal affinity was far inferior to that of the members of the 0 team. However, he possesses special helmet equipment developed by the Abyss Research Institute to resist the effects of abyss erosion. Although this kind of helmet cannot protect against the erosion effects of the deep layers of the abyss, it is quite useful in the shallow layers of the abyss. At the very least, a person with average abyssal aptitude can stay in the abyss for 2 consecutive days without experiencing serious erosion reactions. Feel sorry. According to Mr. Joe's wishes, this is also one of the assessments for you. That's why we didn't equip you with helmets. Seeing that Chen Jia in the team was already feeling unwell, Researcher Joe explained a little embarrassedly. Hearing this, Chen Jia just waved his hand. It's okay, I can hold on. Compared to the beginning, this thin and slender young man became stronger. In addition, what is also strong is his will. Brother Jia, great. Zhuang Yan gave Chen Jia a thumbs up from the side. Su Yang and Mo Ruhuan also gave Chen Jia corresponding encouragement. Even Morong Nian cast an affirmative look at Chen Jia. After 2 months of getting along with each other, Morong Nian was no longer as completely aloof as he was at the beginning, but could now have some basic interactions with others. Certainly, except Su Yang. This has not changed from beginning to end. Several more hours passed. Finally, everyone arrived at the location marked in the mission. In front of him was a barren hilly terrain, and the unexplored cave was in the middle of 2 of the hills. Everyone followed the terrain and arrived at the entrance of the cave. The dark entrance, looking inside, you can't see anything. Researcher Joe took out the corresponding detection equipment. The depth of the cave was measured. Final result, 42,300 meters. Depth of 42 kilometers. It is more than 4 times deeper than the deepest trench in the main world. But this is an abyss. Although caves of this depth are rare, they are normal. Prepare to enter. As the leader of Team Zero, Su Yang gave the order and settled on the front. The search device on the mecha's arm shines toward the depths of the cave. However, even if the search device is extremely bright, it can only illuminate a range of several hundred meters at most. What's left is still a silent darkness. Only by diving in and exploring can you get a full picture. When Su Yang and others were mentally calculating and exploring the depths of the cave. In the deepest part of the cave, in the dead silence and darkness, an unusually charming flower bloomed. Normally, there shouldn't be any plants growing in this kind of place. But that strange flower with a radius of 2 meters is not only full of vitality. It even gave birth to a fluttering transparent bud. The bud is beating like a heart. And among the buds, in that transparent bract, a naked girl is curled up, sleeping peacefully like a newborn baby in her mother's womb. In the cave, Su Yang and others have advanced 10 kilometers. This 10 kilometers journey can really be regarded as some kind of torture. In a dark and withdrawn environment, people will instinctively produce some kind of resistance. Coupled with the erosion of the abyss, which affects the brain nerves all the time, it is easy to suffer from severe discomfort. But the only good news is that there don't seem to be any abyssal beasts in this cave. At least, since entering the cave until now, I have only encountered one 3-star monster. It seems that he must have stumbled in here accidentally. Come on, everybody, only the last 30 kilometers are left. As the captain, Su Yang encouraged everyone. It seemed that everyone else was fine, but Chen Jia was a little unable to hold himself back. I hope this trip won't be in vain. Chen Jia gasped lightly. Although it is uncomfortable, I can still bear it. Soon, everyone went 20 kilometers deeper. Only the last 10 kilometers are left to reach the deepest part of the cave. However, along the way, there was no trace of the so-called unknown species at all. Is it possible that that thing really stays in the deepest part of the cave? In desperation, everyone could only continue to go deeper. While continuing to advance 3 kilometers, everyone encountered a 5-star monster. This monster was dormant on the rock platform in the cave. After noticing the intrusion of the people, its eyes that looked green due to fluorescence stared straight at the people. At the same time, TN31 Chi illustrated book gave the corresponding information. 5-star Dark Spirit Beast. Kill points 8W. Introduce. This is an abyssal beast that likes to live in caves. It is powerful and territorial and will kill any intruder who dares to enter its territory. Attributes. Power 20 tons. Speed 300 meters per second. Characteristic. Shadow Fear, a powerful mental attribute attack that can cause people to feel fear and other emotions, slow down the nerve reaction speed, and prevent them from exerting their full combat power. Shadow migration has the strange ability to jump in the shadows, and can launch attacks from the shadows, making it difficult for people to guard against. Recommendation: it is not recommended to fight it in any cave environment. It is best to lead it to an open area and kill it with 5 coverage. Illustration uploader Mecha No. 6,432,445. After seeing the corresponding information, the eyes of the team members instantly became alert. In everyone's knowledge, only Su Yang and Murong Nian were promoted to 4-star Mecha Masters in the team. If a 4-star Mecha Master wants to fight across levels and kill 5-star monsters, even evil geniuses like Su Yang and Murong Nian will have a certain degree of difficulty. Not to mention, according to the Apocalypse Illustrated book, in the cave environment, this monster named Dark Spirit Beast is quite difficult to deal with. Jia. Before everyone could discuss how to deal with this powerful beast, the Dark Spirit Beast let out an extremely harsh scream. This is the so-called shadow fear. For those who are not determined, can breed the spread of fear. The reaction speed of its nerves decreases, making it unable to exert its combat power. Unfortunately, the members of the team are not ordinary people. They are the geniuses among the geniuses who have been screened and selected from tens of millions of people across the country. Even Chen Jia's willpower is far stronger than that of ordinary people. Not to mention the other members of the team. So, except a little harsher, the team members were almost unaffected. On the contrary, researcher Zhou's body began to tremble slightly, and his 2 muscles trembled. It can be seen that he should have been affected by the fear of shadow. Murong Nian and I are going. You 3 just need to protect researcher Zhou. After initially assessing the current situation, Su Yang gave orders to the 3 team members. After saying that, he flew directly towards the Dark Spirit Beast. As for Murong Nian, it was as if he had a tacit understanding. Su Yang didn't even need to say anything before he rushed towards the other side of the Dark Spirit Beast. Murong Nian's targeting of Su Yang only existed in ordinary times. When performing tasks, she only has one identity. That is the vice captain of the team. Stolen. It seems that he did not expect that the few humans in front of him were not affected by his shadow fear. Before the Dark Spirit Beast had time to release shadow movement, Su Yang and Murong Nian's attacks all landed. The movements of the 2 are synchronized. If you want to hide, the Dark Spirit Beast can only avoid the attack of one of them. But, as a 5-star abyssal beast, in the 4th layer of the abyss, the Dark Spirit Beast is almost domineering and can be called the overlord of the party. Facing the 2 people attacking it in front of it, it did not notice the slightest danger, and even felt a trace of anthropomorphic contempt. It seems to be saying, I didn't activate shadow movement to attack you, but you still dare to take the initiative. Bang. Right. The A-level energy lightsaber in Murong Nian's hand struck the Dark Spirit Beast's left arm, instantly cutting out a ferocious bloody mouth. At the same time, Su Yang did not use weapons, but simply used his fists. This is because if the Yuan Nang nuclear sword is used, the strength of the sword alone is enough to cut the Dark Spirit Beast in 2, and something is definitely wrong. Therefore, Su Yang carefully restrained his strength, tried to control the force, and smashed his fist on the Dark Spirit Beast. You know, Su Yang's current strength has reached a terrifying 100 tons. Even if a certain amount of force is controlled, it is not that precise after all. As a result, the Dark Spirit Beast's body was like a squeezed watermelon. There was a bang, and it burst open. Su Yang, 5-star monster, is it so admirable? At the same time, when the Dark Spirit Beast's body exploded instantly, everyone present was dumbfounded, looking straight at Su Yang. This is, what level of power? Only then can he destroy a 5-star abyssal beast with one punch. This shadow beast is probably injured and has aged, so its physical strength has been reduced a lot. Seeing that everyone seemed a little shocked, Su Yang pretended to be calm and said, returning to the team. It seems to make sense, otherwise it wouldn't make sense at all. Everyone thought so. Only Murong Nian, who returned to the team at the same time as Su Yang, had complicated eyes. Her full-strength sword attack just cut a bloody hole in the shadow. This shows that the physical strength of the shadow beast is definitely not low. How did Su Yang manage to blow it up with one punch? The so-called aging and injury are simply true. It was entirely Su Yang's power, far beyond the limit of a 4-star mecha master. Could it be that he has been promoted to 5 stars? Murong Nian shook his head. His eyes became cold again. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. She knew very well that Su Yang's talent was indeed higher than hers. So in 2 months, it is indeed possible to break through the 5-star level in terms of mecha core compatibility. But, if the accompanying mecha wants to be promoted from 4-star to 5-star, the energy crystal core experience required is extremely large. It is absolutely impossible for Su Yang to be promoted to 5 stars at this stage. To sum up, it may be that Su Yang is wearing some kind of S-level glove weapon. Can it greatly increase strength? This inference is not groundless. Last awards ceremony. The special S-level equipment selected by Su Yang. Only he knows what it is, no one else knows. Well, that should be the case. After getting the answer you think you have, Murong Nian no longer thought about this matter. After the death of the dark spirit beast, the effect of shadow fear will naturally disappear. Researcher Zhou finally broke free from the fear and took a deep breath for several minutes. Only then can we continue deep into the cave with Su Yang and others. Everyone continued to go deeper and moved forward until they finally reached the deepest part of the cave. In the deepest part of the cave, the terrain suddenly opened up, turning from a narrow passage into an underground plain. Due to the expansion of the scope, everyone can only carry out a carpet search in the form of a small team, intending to find the so-called unknown creature. However, after searching for most of it, still haven't seen the creature in the report. When they reached the other side, the sharp-eyed Mo Ruhuan suddenly pointed at 310 not far away and exclaimed, "What is that?" Everyone heard this. They all looked in the direction she pointed. Then, he saw the giant flowers emitting light fluorescence in the distance. It is so large at such a long distance. According to estimates, the radius of this flower should exceed 2 meters. How could such a giant flower grow at the bottom of this dark cave that is tens of kilometers deep? No matter how you look at it, this is not normal, right? Especially researcher Zhou. Originally, he was already a little disappointed when he did not find the so-called unknown species. As a result, such a strange giant flower suddenly popped up. Naturally, he regained his interest in research and ran towards it quickly. Everyone naturally followed. When everyone followed researcher Zhou and gradually approached the giant flower, everyone was stunned. In front of you, the radius of that giant flower is indeed more than 2 meters. In terms of environmental biology, this is an almost impossible phenomenon. In front of everyone's eyes, there is another even more impossible phenomenon. On top of the buds of the giant flower, among the buds. She actually gave birth to a curled-up, naked girl. Su Yang, and everyone else, froze on the spot, shocked by what they saw. But at this moment, something even more unexpected happened. I saw the girl in the bud. It was as if he sensed something. Slowly opened his eyes. Those eyes, extremely clear. There were so many people standing in front of her. However, she stepped over everyone and looked at Su Yang behind them, seemingly confused. Then, a faint smile appeared on that beautiful face that could no longer be described in earthly words. In an instant, the elegance has faded. Even Murong Nian, who has always been famous for her beauty. At this moment, he seemed a little sad. And Su Yang. At first it was just pure shock. I was shocked as to why there was such a strange giant flower in this cave that was tens of kilometers deep, and why there was a girl pregnant in this flower. But, when the girl quietly opened her eyes in the bud, then he met his eyes, and after a brief moment of confusion, he revealed that most beautiful smile in the world. Su Yang's heart, after suddenly stopping for a beat, began to beat even more violently. This is not because of the girl's extremely beautiful face. In terms of stunning beauty, Su Yang has seen too many of the two sisters Chen and An, Dr. and Yan, Murong Nian. Su Yang has seen too many. But I never had this reaction. What causes this phenomenon? From a deeper level, some indescribable feeling. It felt like there was some kind of inexplicable bond between the two of them. But the key is, Su Yang is extremely sure. This was the first time he saw this bud girl. Wrong. This must be the first time I see this kind of human being born from a strange flower bud. This. Beside, researcher Joe swallowed. Still couldn't believe what I was seeing. He works in the anomalous biology department of the Abyss Research Institute. But in more than 10 years of work experience, I have never encountered such a situation. A giant flower in the abyss gave birth to a human girl. This is simply unbelievable. Except Su Yang and researcher Joe. Other members of the team at this time. None of them knew what to do. Could it be that she is the unknown creature mentioned in the report at that time? Wrong. The reports at the time were talking about some kind of smaller monster. There was absolutely no way it could be the obviously human girl in front of her. The sender of the report could not be blind enough to regard a human girl as a small monster. Moreover, today's girl, still in the bud, it was obviously conceived and born from this, it couldn't have been done by oneself, right? When everyone was shocked, the girl in the bud stretched out her slender white fingers and gently poked a hole in the bud. Wow, the bud bursts. The liquid in the bud gushes out. The girl also took advantage of the situation and slowly walked out of the flower bud, and then rushed towards Su Yang. Because of that special feeling, Su Yang is completely confused now. Before she had time to react, the budding girl was already pregnant with the king. He wrapped his hands around Su Yang's waist and pressed his body tightly against her. This was a development that no one present expected. Chen Jia and Zhuang Yan, after recovering from the initial shock, turned around quite consciously. Although the identity of the flower bud girl is not yet clear, she was born naked after all. As for researcher Zhou, although he had a strong desire for research, he still looked away. As for Murong Nian, the moment when the flower bud girl walked out of the flower bud and hugged Su Yang tightly, her pupils shrank unconsciously, and her eyes suddenly became cold, but that was all, and she did not do anything else. Although separated by a layer of companion mecha. However, Su Yang didn't know why, but he could clearly feel an inexplicable closeness to the young girl in his arms. Mo Ruhuan, please help get the petals, and use them as temporary clothing for her. Su Yang did not push away the bud girl in her arms, but said to Mo Ruhuan, who was standing aside. Oh, all right. Mo Ruhuan, who also recovered from the shock, quickly went to pick a petal after hearing Su Yang's words. The flower that gave birth to the bud girl has a radius of 2 meters, and its petals are more than enough to be used as clothing to hide shame. With Mo Ruhuan's help, the flower bud girl rolled the petals around her body, temporarily forming a temporary piece of clothing. But even such simple temporary clothes could not conceal her extremely beautiful appearance. Team, Captain, what should we do next? Mo Ruhuan glanced at the flower bud girl and asked hesitantly. The main purpose of this mission is to help researcher Zhou catch the so-called unknown creature. As a result, now, no shadow of the unknown creature has been seen. Instead, an unknown person has been discovered. Moreover, a few people tried it just now. This girl who was born from the bud seems not to be able to speak, nor can she understand human language. So everyone didn't know how to deal with her, so naturally they could only look at Su Yang and ask for his opinion. After all, as the captain of the Abyssalist team, Su Yang's status and authority are actually much higher than those of researcher Zhou. After all, this budding girl was not a target in the mission. Due to the gap in identity and authority, researcher Zhou had no way to intervene before Su Yang spoke. Su Yang was silent for a while. After waking up, the bud girl showed obvious dependence and trust on him. She had never been close to anyone except him, but huddled tightly in his arms. This reaction cannot be explained by biological instinct at all. When duck eggs hatch, the newborn ducklings will regard the first thing they see as their parents. This is true even if the thing is an inanimate object, a bottle or a trash can. But Su Yang is certain. When this bud girl opened her eyes, the first person you see is definitely not yourself. Because at that time, he was standing behind everyone. Her gaze directly passed over everyone else, without even lingering at all, and fell directly on herself accurately. Correct. She was exposed to the abyss like this, is she okay? When Su Yang was thinking, Chen Jia on the side suddenly said this. After his reminder, everyone realized that they were all wearing accompanying mechas, which could isolate the influence of the erosion of the abyss to a certain extent. But the bud girl in front of her only used the petals of the giant flower as temporary clothing, and had nothing to defend herself against the erosion of the abyss. It seems to be okay. Mo Ruhuan interrupted. If it is not combined with the accompanying mecha, it will be directly exposed to the abyss environment. Even they will have an extremely strong erosion reaction in just a few minutes. But from the beginning to now, at least 10 minutes have passed, but the bud girl has not responded at all. At this point, Su Yang was stunned, because it reminded him of something special about himself. When I was conducting the abyss adaptability test, I was not affected by the erosion of the abyss. In the end, he had no choice but to modify the instrument data through the black core, creating the illusion that he could be affected by the abyss. Now, this bud girl actually showed immunity to the erosion of the abyss just like herself. She and herself have this commonality of being immune to the erosion of the abyss. Is it a coincidence, or is it? Su Yang did not follow this idea. Because this idea is too ridiculous. I have parents. How could he be like her, a human bud born in the abyss? It's just nonsense. Su Yang took back her mind. It was finally decided to bring this bud girl back to the main world first. As for how to arrange her future, let Mr. Zhou decide. On the way back to the main base, in order not to make the bud girl not wearing the accompanying mecha too noticeable, everyone surrounded him and helped him hide his sight. Speaking of which, at the very beginning, in order to get her off Su Yang's body, everyone spent a lot of effort. She was like an extremely stubborn little girl, unwilling to be separated from Su Yang no matter what. In the end, Su Yang comforted her for a while, and then held her hand. Then she calmed down and stopped asking to be with Su Yang. Captain, I see she likes you so much, how about you give her a name? On the way, looking at the quiet girl holding Su Yang's hand and saying nothing, Mo Ruhuan had a sudden idea and suggested to Su Yang. As a person who loves brain teasers and guest romance novels, now it's natural. Outside Su Yang Marong Nian's CP, she suddenly discovered the male protagonist explores a different world and picks up a girl with whom he is destined to be connected. This topic seems more daring to discuss. Of course. Noila Mo secretly glanced at Marong Nian, who had a cold face and said nothing during the whole process. If the two are combined to create a legendary romantic love triangle, then it would be the best. Choose a name. Su Yang was slightly stunned. If Mo Ruhuan hadn't mentioned it, it didn't occur to him at all. Thinking of this, he turned his head unconsciously and glanced at the bud girl beside him. I don't know if it was a coincidence, but the bud girl also turned her head at this time, raised her head slightly, and happened to meet Su Yang's eyes, smiling sweetly. At this moment, good money Zhao Su Yang even suddenly had an illusion. It was as if she understood what Mo Ruhuan said. She is looking forward to giving her a human name. J.A. What name should I choose? Su Yang began to think about this issue sincerely. But until most of the day passed and everyone returned to the main base, they still couldn't come up with a suitable name. After arriving at the main base, through permission, Su Yang and others returned through special channels. In addition, the main base was already sparsely staffed, so the bud girl was not seen. Just like that, after returning to the main world, Noila Mo took the initiative to go to an outside store and buy a set of girls' clothes. Then he tried to take her to the bathroom to change her clothes so as not to attract too much attention in the main world. But the problem is, she was not willing to let go of Su Yang's hand at all. No matter how hard Su Yang tried, he still failed in the end. In desperation, Su Yang could only take her to change clothes. During the whole process, there was not much reaction. Marong Nian was alone, her eyes slightly lowered, making it difficult to figure out what she was thinking about. Soon, Su Yang walked out with the bud girl who had changed into clothes. Even though this set of clothes is very ordinary, when worn on the girl's body, it seems to be instantly sublimated. That absolutely beautiful appearance makes people unable to take their eyes away. The girl's beauty is enough to be called as bright as a star. If it weren't for the members of Zero Team who had been getting along with Marong Nian for a long time. If you have such a strong resistance to beauty, you may have been distracted by it for a long time. As for Su Yang, although he also stared at the bud girl for several seconds. However, it was not because of her beauty at all, but because of that inexplicable feeling. Let me ask you, anyone who has never had any interactions with each other and has never met suddenly shows 200% trust and closeness to you. Under such circumstances, who cannot care? Su Yang is in this situation now. Let's go. 1. Look away. Su Yang took a deep breath. Go back to the central government. Central government. Mr. Zhou glanced at the calendar on the desk and calculated the time. About 2 days have passed since Team Zero entered the abyss. According to estimates, it should be time for them to come back to report. I wonder if they can successfully capture the 5-star dark spirit beast after encountering it in the cave. That's right, the so-called unknown species is just an excuse made up at will. The real purpose of this mission is actually to test the results of the Zero Team's special training in the past 2 months. That dark spirit beast was the abyssal beast that was specially arranged by Mr. Zhou to be raised in the cave. But in order to make the effect better, even researcher Zhou who was accompanying him did not know the truth. Ding! Suddenly, the message rang out. Mr. Zhou took a look and saw that the news came from Su Yang. It seems that the 5-star monsters are no longer a threat to them. In the next month, a real hell special training factory will be conducted. In this month, it is not an easy task for them to grow up to be strong enough to fight against a 6-star apostle of the abyss. Mr. Zhou, who was thinking about the arrangements for the next month, had originally planned to put down the communicator, but the communicator sent new messages one after another. Seeing this, Mr. Zhou frowned. If you have anything to say, you can't say it until you come back to report. With this in mind, he glanced at the message sent by Su Yang on the communicator. Then, his pupils suddenly opened wide, as if he had seen something incredible. Su Yang, report, this mission has temporarily failed. Zero Team did not assist researcher Zhou in capturing the unknown species. However, we found an extremely large flower at the bottom of the cave at the mission target location. Within that flower, there was a girl about 16 or 17 years old pregnant. The girl seemed unable to understand our language, and she did not show any aggression. Based on my personal judgment, we took her back. Main World 1 is returning to the Lieutenant Colonel's mansion. Specific photos of giant flowers and biological samples have been collected and brought back together. See here, Mr. Zhou had already stood up from his chair. He, who had always been indifferent to emotions and anger, could not suppress the shock in his heart at this time. Su Yang's first message was that the mission was not completed. This was completely expected, because there was no such thing as an unknown species in the first place. But what Su Yang said next? The giant flower in the cave. A girl conceived in a giant flower. This. Mr. Zhou's eyes twitched slightly. From this detail alone, we can see how shocked he was at this moment. A long time. He forced down the shock in his heart. After giving the order to Su Yang to take everyone in the team, including researcher Zhou, to a certain room in the central mansion to stand by, he hurriedly walked out of the room. Central government. The highest martial law area. If the central government is the core of the entire Daxia, so here is the core of the core. Only Mr. Zhou and a few other people with the highest authority are qualified to join the C group. Along the way, Mr. Zhou walked in a hurry and acted in a hurry. He was not at all like the man behind the scenes who held heavy weapons in the past and could make the whole great Shah tremble just by raising his feet. From this, we can see how violently Su Yang's news shocked him. Soon, Mr. Zhou came to a certain passage in the core area. After passing the most top-secret system test in the entire Daxia, he successfully entered it. 20 minutes later, Mr. Zhou walked out of it. Although his brows were still furrowed. But it looks a lot better than at the beginning. Is this really okay? Mr. Zhou murmured in his mouth, seeming to be thinking about something. As one of the core members of Daxia, he naturally knows Su Yang's identity very well. It's just, doesn't it really matter if that girl is with Su Yang? Just like that, my colleague stood there and thought for a long time. Finally, after a few minutes passed, Mr. Zhou seemed to have figured it out. His brows relaxed slightly. He sighed and shook his head. That's all. Since it was decided like this back then, let's continue like this. It's just that, there was never any dazzling in the cave at that time. Could it be that if I arranged for Su Yang to go on a trial, could he also feel the hidden will of God? Who does the him in Mr. Zhou's mouth refer to? No way of knowing. He has already figured it out. Decided to act in accordance with the resolution of His Holiness. So, he turned back into the majestic old man holding a heavy weapon in his hand, slowly walked away, and left here. In the room, after sending the report to Mr. Zhou, Su Yong led the team, Researcher Zhou, and the flower bud girl to the room mentioned by Mr. Zhou. During the long wait, the bud girl always stayed by Su Yang's side and never left for a minute. That kind of closeness caught everyone's eyes. If they didn't know the truth, they might have thought that the two were biological brothers and sisters. Mo Ruhuan, who has always been responsible for the lively atmosphere in the team, said this directly and looked at Su Yong with a smile. Captain, do you really have no sister? Is there a possibility that she is your long-lost sister? Otherwise, it's impossible for her to rely on you all the time and ignore the rest of us. DBAC. Faced with Mo Ruhuan's teasing, Su Yong rolled his eyes and ignored it. But then again, why is this guy so close to me? At this time, Chen Jia, who was standing aside, pushed up his glasses in a serious manner and analyzed with a serious face. I once heard a theory. If there is some special attraction between two strangers, then there is definitely some kind of connection between them. Zhuang Yan's eyes widened and he looked at Chen Jia. Brother Jia, what's the difference between you saying this and not saying it? Chen Jia. Creak. The door to the room was suddenly pushed open. Then, Mr. Zhou's figure came in from outside. Mr. Zhou. Everyone looked at Mr. Zhou, awaiting his solution to this. Mr. Zhou, who just entered the room. First, he turned his attention to the bud girl. After seeing her natural closeness to Su Yong, a subtle sigh flashed in her eyes. Then, he did not speak, but waved towards the door. Tap tap tap. After Mr. Zhou waved, several people carrying various instruments entered the room from outside the door. Mr. Zhou pursed his lips, looked at the confused people in front of him, and spoke slowly with a low voice. Everyone, please cooperate. Due to the special characteristics of this girl, you need to partially erase your memory. A few people were silent for a while. They are all smart people. Soon I realized that the girl's identity must involve some kind of special secret. Mr. Zhou arranged for them to undergo memory erasure, which may be regarded as a protective measure for them. Among the crowd, only Su Yang's eyes flickered slightly. Memory erased, if I remember correctly. It was during the award ceremony. Those top geniuses who were unwilling to join the abyss-faced ritual also received memory erasure. According to today's technological level, it is not difficult to erase memories, and it will not cause any sequelae. If they found this bud girl and needed to erase her memory, doesn't this mean that her confidentiality level is higher than the Abyssal One project? Su Yong was thinking. The other members of the team, as well as Researcher Zhou, are already in place and wearing the corresponding equipment. Only Su Yong, because the bud girl is still huddled next to Su Yong, is not ready yet. Mr. Zhou sighed. Several people were arranged to force the bud girl away. This process really took a lot of effort. The flower bud girl's strength was surprisingly strong. Only after several people transformed into mechas could they be able to subdue her. After wearing the memory erasing device, Su Yong took a deep breath, and her eyes gradually became determined. He does not intend to accept memory erasure, so he needs to control the memory erasure device through the black core. However, the tentacles of the black core must be connected to the instrument in order to carry out intelligent brain invasion. And this memory erasing device is a head-mounted helmet. Then, when receiving the memory erasure helmet from the staff, Su Yong quietly summoned the black core into the palm of his hand, and silently completed the invasion of the memory erasure helmet. After all personnel had worn the memory erasure helmets, Mr. Zhou ordered the erasure to begin. Soon, with the operation of the equipment, everyone's memories of the tasks performed in the past 2 days were all erased. At the same time, in order to avoid detection, a temporary false memory was inserted. Among them, Yang is treated differently. He was implanted with additional memories. The flower bud girl is a long-lost sister who has just been found. However, due to some reasons, she has lost her language function and needs to learn it again. It was a casual joke that Mo Ruhuan made earlier. Now a real memory. Sometimes, reality is so ridiculous. Soon, amnesia completed. Everyone recovered, lost all memories of the past 2 days, and looked at the bud girl in front of them curiously. In the newly implanted memories, they only knew that they were called over by Mr. Zhou to announce a piece of news. As for Su Yang, through the black core, he not only avoided memory erasure, but even mastered the contents of the implanted memory. At this time, he acted very vividly, pretending to be shocked, and looked at the bud girl. She is my sister. Maybe it's because of the guilt in my heart for this group of boys and girls. Mr. Zhou didn't pay too much attention to whether there was anything unusual among them. Instead, he followed the instructions of the person above him in the originally planned routine, and nodded to Su Yang. Well, after you joined the Abyssal Ones, we conducted a more detailed investigation into your respective backgrounds. The rest of the people have no problem, but Su Yang's information shows that when you were 2 years old, you had a sister. Maybe it's because you were too young at the time and didn't form memories, so you don't remember this incident at all over the years. Under Zhou Lao's narration, Mo Ruhuan, Zhuang Yan and Chen Jia. They were all full of curious eyes. Look at the girl next to Su Yang. Is this the captain's sister? She is so beautiful, even better looking than Morong Yan. For such a beautiful sister, it can be seen that the captain's family must have very good genes. No wonder the captain is so handsome. Morong Yan's eyes were calm and he stood quietly aside. Villa residence. Looking at Su Ling, who was hugging her knees and sitting on the bed looking at him quietly, Su Yang's eyes flashed with deep thought. Su Ling, this is the name of sister that Mr. Zhou told himself. However, Su Yang, who has neither had his memory erased nor had his memory implanted, knows very well. She is not his sister at all, nor is she a Su Ling, but a girl picked up from the abyss and born in a bud. Now comes the problem. Why did Mr. Zhou do this? What is his purpose for doing this? At first, when choosing to join Abyss Phase 1, Su Yang came here with the idea of gaining both fame and fortune. Not only can you protect your home and country, become a hero walking in the dark, but you can also gain access to the country's resources. But now it seems that things are more complicated than I imagined. First, Mr. Zhou was indeed sincere when facing them. This can be seen from the fact that there is no surveillance system installed in the residence. As a member of the first generation of Abyssal Facers, Mr. Zhou indeed spent a lot of effort to train them. But, facing the girl born in the abyss, Mr. Zhou's original intention succumbed to some irresistible force. He erased and modified the memories of the members of the team, shaping the bud girl into his sister. At that time, Su Yang paid special attention to Mr. Zhou's expression, which showed guilt and helplessness. Obviously, this move was not his original intention. In this case, is it an order from someone above Mr. Zhou? In Daxia, Mr. Zhou has been regarded as a core figure who is very important. If so, what kind of status would that be for someone who could directly order him? There is an old saying in Daxia. When something goes wrong, there must be a monster. If there is no problem with the identity of the flower bud girl, the people above don't have to do this. He deliberately made her his sister. This is also quite suspicious. So, we still have to increase our strength. When my strength is low, I am too passive. This kind of passivity made him seem to be kept in the dark. He didn't like this feeling very much. Fortunately, there is a black core. It gives me a trump card. But from now on, I'm going to change my mindset a little bit. Daxia, the central government, the feelings of family and country, it's time to restrain themselves a little. In the following time, the only goal is to become stronger, stronger, and stronger again. Wait until I am promoted to become a 9-star, 10-star, or even beyond 10-star legendary Mecha Master. At that time, I may be able to sit down and talk with the group of people above Mr. Zhou on an equal footing. Su Yang's eyes flashed with determination. The whole person's character also changed slightly at this moment. If it were said that Mr. Zhou's original intention was to let the Abyss-Faced One's team have an experience. So no matter what, under the circumstances, it did promote Su Yang's growth. After coaxing Su Ling to sleep, looking at the beautiful face in her sleep, Su Yang felt a little complicated. This girl from the abyss is as pure as a piece of white paper, knowing nothing and understanding nothing. In this world, it may be difficult. Her unconditional trust and closeness to herself. Su-young instinctively developed a desire for protection. This desire to protect, as if coming from the depths of the bloodline soul. He sighed softly and looked back. Tonight, Su-young wants to try one thing. Something I had never thought of before. But now, I have to do it. That is, rely on the Black Core's intellectual brain invasion to see if you can try to obtain some information from the central government's system. The night is getting dark. Su-young relied on the ability of mimic camouflage to transform into a light insect and began to follow the route in memory to Mr. Joe's office. It has to be said that the ability of this Black Core is almost unpredictable. If it were simply to be able to change people's faces and disguise them, that would be fine. The key is that it can also transform into other living things and non-living things. It can be called the pinnacle of technological creation. After mimicry disguises as an insect. In order to ensure his own safety, Su-young also deployed the 9 layers of Seraph Circle. In a core area like the central government, after going deep into certain important areas, no one can guarantee whether there will be any mechanical devices. Therefore, for your own safety, it is naturally better to be cautious. He stayed in the central government house for nearly 2 months. Su-young has already figured out most of the location information. As a member of Abyssal Facer, the authority of the team members is still quite high. Except for some areas that are inaccessible, other places are basically unimpeded. Today, since it was the first time to act, Su-young did not intend to try too high a difficulty but went to Mr. Joe's office. 10 minutes later, Su-young has arrived at Mr. Joe's office. The access control system only lasted for 5 seconds under the Black Core's intelligent brain invasion before it was successfully cracked. However, in the past, intelligent brain invasion only took about 2 seconds, and some simple systems could even be deciphered instantly. Now, it only took 5 seconds to hack into an access control system, which gave Su-young a bad feeling. What he is doing now is to invade the central core of Daxia, even though the Black Core's ability is extremely abnormal. But, is it really possible to complete the invasion? You know, the Black Core obviously has levels. Otherwise, he would not absorb the energy crystal cores produced after he hunted the abyssal beasts, nor would he plunder and devour his promoted spirit. If nothing else, the ability of intelligent brain invasion should also be related to the level of the Black Core, right? With an uncertain attitude, Su-young cracked the access control system and entered Mr. Joe's office. On the table, there is one of the most advanced quantum computers currently available. Su-young tried to crack it through the Black Core's intelligent brain invasion. But after waiting for a full minute, there was still no success. Isn't it really possible, although it has been expected for a long time? But when the fact of real failure was in front of his eyes, Su-young still sighed. It seems that several previous too simple intrusions made him think that the current human security system is too simple. After all, this is the private computer of Daxia's core figures, and the information archives contained in it are related to many core secrets. If you allow yourself to be cracked so easily, that would be something truly abnormal. But, even if it fails, Su-young was not discouraged. It's not a big problem. As long as I hunt a large number of abyssal beasts and advance to a higher level, the level of the Black Core will increase. By then, it should be much easier to complete the invasion. Thinking of this, Yang temporarily gave up tonight's invasion. After leaving Mr. Joe's office, he used the Black Core to erase the access control data. 0. Return to your residence. He went to the room and took a look at Su Ling. This girl from another world from the abyss is sleeping soundly. Seeing this, Su-young felt relieved and went back to his room to sleep. In the following days, except for the episode where the captain has an extra sister. 0. The daily life of the team has not changed much. Every day's combat training and course study are just like the previous 2 months. Only in terms of intensity and content, it has been strengthened and transcended to a certain extent, making everyone feel a lot of pressure. In addition to daily training and study, Su-yang's spare time is either spent accompanying Su Ling, teaching her how to read and speak, or diving into the depths of the abyss to hunt high-level monsters. The accumulated points have also increased from more than 6 million at the beginning to more than 11 million, reaching the opportunity to purchase the core increase of the intermediate mecha. But, Su-young has not easily used this increase opportunity yet. After the last incident, Su-young has realized that the most powerful power is everything. If possible, what I need is to spend 100 million Apocalypse points to purchase advanced Mecha Core boosts. This kind of increase, every time, is a qualitative change. Ordinary qualitative changes are not enough. What he wants is the ultimate qualitative change. It is the qualitative change within the qualitative change. 10 days later, inside the room, Su-young looked at his mecha's core compatibility and found that it had reached 5 stars. 51%. I don't know if it's because Su-young's desire to become stronger has become extremely strong. Originally, each spirit bond could only increase the mecha's core compatibility by 1% minus 2%. In these 10 days, it has increased by about 3% almost every day. This growth rate is extremely exaggerated. 2. Almost. God. Hunting monsters on the 7th level of the Abyss is no longer enough to satisfy the points requirement. I still have 90 million points short of 100 million points. If I continue at this rate, I may not be able to get enough by the time I am promoted to 7 stars. It would be great if I could get an S-level weapon. An S-level weapon can be amplified into an XS-level weapon through top-level amplification. It's time for the SSS-level Energy Nuclear Sword and Magnetic Storm Orbital Ray to be eliminated. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.